Hey guys, tonight we're stepping straight into the pitch-black, torchlit mess of a medieval village after sunset. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. There's no electricity, no working plumbing, and honestly, no clear definition of safe once the sun dips behind the thatched rooftops. Think you're just going to stroll around, take in some fresh night air, maybe journal by candlelight? Yeah, not so much. The only thing waiting for you out here is the sound of distant screaming and the possibility of being mistaken for a thief, or worse, a tax collector. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city and the time in the comments. I love seeing the little community we've built across time zones and candlelit nightmares. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's late evening in a modest medieval village nestled between the edges of a dense, shadow-choked forest and a winding, suspiciously murky river. The sun has just dipped below the hills, and with it, the last ounce of comfort or visibility. You're standing on a dirt road that squelches underfoot. Already, the scent of the day's waste is beginning to thicken. Someone up the lane is emptying a chamber pot directly out a window, and it splatters not far from where you're standing. Congratulations, you're initiated. The sky bleeds gold and purple for a few more minutes before night truly slams down, and it's not the soft kind of night. It's heavy, thick, and absolute. There are no streetlights. The only illumination comes from torches hammered into creaky wooden posts, and the occasional flicker from a hearth glow leaking through shuttered windows. You can already tell those torches aren't going to help much. They smoke more than they shine. You begin walking, keeping to the middle of the path like everyone else seems to. The alleys are narrow, crooked things. Even in daylight, they're probably unsettling. Now, they feel like the inside of a mouth. And while the buildings here are mostly one-story timber-framed huts with thatched roofs, they lean toward each other in weird, conspiratorial ways, like they're whispering about you. You pass a small group of kids, barefoot, smudged with soot and something else, and one of them hisses at you. Not in a playful way, more like the way a feral cat warns you not to step closer. They vanish behind a hut before you can react. Welcome to night in the Middle Ages. There's a curfew, of course. Most towns and villages close their gates at dusk to keep out thieves, wolves, and anyone suspicious who didn't get inside by sundown. If you weren't already here, tough luck. There's no 24-hour diner to hide in, no train to catch. If you're stuck outside the walls, you're bedding down with the owls, the outlaws, and whatever likes to feed in the dark. You hear the groan of heavy wooden gates being dragged closed behind you. Chains clank, metal stool scrapes. Somewhere above, a guard yawns, very audibly. That's the night watch. You'll meet them later. They're not exactly inspiring confidence. But for now, the village is shifting into its nocturnal rhythm. You think it's bedtime, right? Ha! No. This is when things actually start to stir. Because the dark isn't just a time to rest. It's when the rules bend, or vanish. You catch sight of someone lighting a lantern with a trembling hand. It's an older man who eyes you suspiciously, then lurches inside and bolts the door. A woman follows him moments later, dragging a goose. The goose does not want to go inside. It flaps and hisses, possibly swearing in goose language, but she gets it through the door eventually. Everyone's locking up. You realise you're one of the only people still outside, and now you're walking faster. The sounds begin to change. In daylight, it's market chatter. Animal bleats, clanging blacksmiths. At night, it's low murmurs behind closed shutters, a baby wailing for a moment before someone hushes it, the squelch of something wet in a ditch. Somewhere, there's a dog barking its lungs out. It's not a guard dog, it's just panicking. The truth is, medieval nights weren't just quiet, they were deeply, absurdly unsafe. A lot of that comes down to one simple reality: there's no centralised police. The law after dark is enforced by whatever part-time drunks and elderly volunteers make up the night watch. There are no forensics, no emergency services. You could scream for help and someone might hear you. Or they might just shutter their window a little tighter and pretend they didn't. You hear a scream, short, sharp, then nothing. You freeze, heart thudding, eyes straining against the dark. A moment later, someone walks past you in a hooded cloak, humming. The humming is off-key. You cannot tell their gender, their age, or whether their hands are covered in blood or just wine. You let them pass. Smart choice. Historically, people were terrified of the dark. And not just because it was dangerous, which it was, but because it was mystical. Evil things came out at night. Demons, witches, restless spirits. And let's not forget, Satan was basically a freelance night manager. That's why bells tolled at certain hours, like Compline and Matins. Not just to mark time, but to ward off what might be creeping around outside. You'll hear some bells soon. And while you're processing that, here's a fun fringe fact. Medieval people thought some night air was toxic. Literally. They believed miasma, bad air, could drift in the darkness and cause disease, madness, or even spontaneous fits. So if you feel nauseous, don't worry. You're either inhaling evil air or stepping in it. As you keep walking, you notice more torchlight coming from what looks like a crossroads. There's movement, shapes, laughter, maybe even music. You might be about to find the one place in town that never sleeps. But before you head there, a wooden shutter creaks open nearby and a woman leans out. She stares at you, then whispers something in a language you don't recognize. The shutter slams shut. You decide to walk faster. Welcome to your first medieval night. You'll want to stay alert, and maybe keep your back to a wall. Things are only going to get weirder from here. The smell hits you before you turn the corner, and it's not a gentle breeze of wood smoke and fresh bread. No. It's more like someone cooked a boot over a dung fire, sprinkled in some rotting fish, then poured a bucket of sweat and regret over the whole thing. You pause, gag slightly, then press forward. Welcome to the medieval night air. It's not scented with lavender. There's a reason people stuffed herbs in their sleeves and walked around sniffing them like medieval Glade plugins. After sundown, the village exhales everything it tried to keep hidden during the day. Chamber pots, animal pens, pig slop, fish guts from the market stall. None of it goes away. It just festers. And at night, with fewer bodies and carts moving around to stir the breeze, the stench settles low and lingers like a bad rumour. You cover your mouth with your sleeve, less for fashion, more for survival, and press on. The path narrows here. The buildings leaning even closer together like gossiping old men with no sense of personal space. You glance up at one second-story window and realise someone's watching you. Just a pair of pale eyes barely visible between wooden shutters. They blink. The shutters close. You pass what must be the tannery. You know this because your nose begins to burn and your eyes start to water. Somewhere in the shadows, hides are being soaked in stale urine and animal brains. That's not metaphorical, that's actually how tanning works here. You hurry past before your boots stick to something you don't want to identify. A rat scurries across your path, followed by another, then another. It's like they're running in shifts. You don't want to think about what they're running from or toward. In the distance you hear a splash. Either someone just tossed another chamber pot out a window, or someone just fell into something very unfortunate. And speaking of chamber pots, you're starting to feel the urge. Great. This should be fun. You glance around, searching for any sign of a public latrine. Nothing, not even an alley you'd trust to duck into. You remember reading somewhere, probably way too late, that in most villages, people just emptied their waste directly into the street. There's no sewer system, no drainage, just gutters filled with slop and, if you're lucky, the occasional trickle of rainwater. Eventually, you settle for a dark corner behind what smells like a fishmonger's stall. You've barely started when a dog growls from the shadows, and a second later you're running, dignity flapping behind you like a loose cloak. That's going in the regret column. As you jog back toward the main road, you almost crash into a man hauling a wooden cart loaded with something. It's covered with a filthy cloth, and something beneath it twitches. You decide not to ask him. He mutters to himself and keeps moving. The wheels of the cart squeal like they're in pain. This, it seems, is the unspoken part of medieval village life. What happens at night isn't written in the records or sung about in ballads. It just is. A slow, dark churn of smells, sights and sounds that settle into your bones. And you're starting to realise that quiet doesn't mean peaceful. It means suppressed, held in, simmering. There's a sudden clanging ahead, someone banging metal on metal. Not an alarm, but a rhythm, a signal. You follow the sound around a bend and find a blacksmith's forge still glowing faintly. The smith, shirtless and glistening, is hammering something while three men watch. None of them speak. Just the sound of iron on iron. Sparks spit into the dark. The men glance at you, and for a second you feel very, very unwelcome. One of them nods slightly. You nod back and keep walking. Your footsteps sound loud on the packed earth. Here's a quirky little fact. Some people in the Middle Ages were known to work by night. not just out of necessity but by choice. Certain trades like baking, milling and blacksmithing were easier to manage in cooler temperatures. And in the summer months, when daylight was brutally hot, night labour wasn't just efficient, it was survival. The baker's ovens, the iron forge, the spinning wheels all glowed just as fiercely under moonlight. Of course, that didn't mean night work was welcomed. Night was supposed to be for prayer or sleep. If you were out working late, you might draw suspicion. Were you hiding something? Were you dealing in something illicit? Or worse, were you consorting with spirits? You duck through a narrow gap between buildings, trying to escape the forge heat. The alley here is damp and smells strongly of mildew and damp wool. You step over something that squishes and immediately regret not looking first. Then, just ahead, you spot movement. A woman is crouched beside a pile of rags. Or is that a person? She whispers something softly over and over, but you can't make out the words. As you pass, she turns her head sharply, eyes wide and unblinking. You speed up. She doesn't follow. This is where things start to blur, between the real and the whispered, the seen and the feared. The line between person and spectre is thin in the dark, and that thinness is exactly why scholars still debate how people truly understood night back then. Was it a space of crime and survival only, or did it hold something sacred, something otherworldly? In monastic texts, night was often a time of divine encounter, of visions and revelations. For peasants, it could be a time of freedom, where the Lord's eye couldn't see and rules could be bent or broken. You pause to catch your breath beneath a creaking wooden awning. Behind you, something shifts in the dark, and a cat darts past, vanishing into a barn. The air is thicker here, closer, like the village is breathing. You suddenly realise how little you can see. Even with torches, the corners are black holes. Every alley could be a trap. Every doorway, a watching eye. And the smells, the rot, the smoke, the wet stone and sour milk, they stick to you, coat your tongue. Somewhere nearby a rooster crows. Early, confused, or possibly just drunk on moonlight. Then it's silent again. You lean against the rough wood and take a moment to listen. There's the rustle of straw, the distant thump of someone falling, a muttered curse. Then quietly, from far off, a soft sobbing. Faint, childlike, unsettling. You should probably move on, and so you do, stepping carefully, breath shallow, feet avoiding the wet patches. You're starting to get it now, not just the danger, but the atmosphere. This isn't the romantic medieval night of fairy tales and candlelit castles. This is the medieval night of blocked nostrils, creepy whispers, and a constant sense that you're being followed. You pass another torch post and see someone's carved a crude face into the wood. Crude face with horns. Charming. You keep walking. The creaking starts low and rhythmic. At first you think it's just the wooden frame of some building settling, or maybe a horse shifting in its stall. But then the sound sharpens, wood grinding against wood, and somewhere beneath it, the jangle of chains. That's when you realise it's the gates. They're closing. You hurry toward the village entrance, rounding a corner just in time to see two hunched figures heaving their weight into the massive beams of the outer gate. It groans like it's alive, old and angry, and swings shut in the slow motion, blocking the village in for the night. Or if you're thinking like a peasant, locking everything else out. Chains are wrapped around iron bolts. One of the men spits and mutters something about wolves. The other just nods grimly and starts walking back toward the watchtower, his torch flickering wildly in the breeze. A few seconds too late, someone pounds on the outside of the gate, shouting. You freeze. The watchmen stop, turn around slowly, and one of them sighs. No good, he calls them out through the wood. Should have made it before sunset. A younger voice from the other side protests, but the guards don't argue. They've heard this before. Instead, they toss on an extra chain and shuffle off into the night, leaving the poor soul outside with whatever's lurking in the hedgerows and fields. You're officially sealed in with the rest of the living, the restless, and whatever refuses to stay dead. If this feels a little dramatic, keep in mind curfew was not optional in most medieval towns. Cities across Europe had hard-set rules that when the sun went down, so did the people. There were even designated curfew bells rung from church towers. Anyone found outside afterward without good reason, like being part of the watch, could be fined, imprisoned, or just presumed to be a criminal or a witch, or both. That's why the few people still moving around now do so like shadows, quick, quiet, and deeply uninterested in attention. You glance up at the crude wooden watchtower near the gate. Two guards stand on the platform leaning on spears, One has a visible flask which he's not shy about using. The other scratches his beard and yawns like it's the most exhausting thing he'll do all night. They're the night watch, or at least this village's attempt at one. No uniforms, no whistles, just local guys who drew the short straw armed with poorly maintained weapons and a flexible understanding of what law means after dark. You decide to head toward the main square, hoping there's something resembling order, or at least more people. The path winds between houses, all of them now sealed tight, their wooden shutters latched, doors barred from the inside. The only light comes from torch brackets nailed to posts, but even those are sputtering now, wax pooling on the ground, flames shivering in the breeze. Up ahead, you spot a small patrol, 3 men, one holding a lantern, another with a wooden club, and the last dragging what looks like a rope. They don't look especially alert or friendly. You try to avoid their path, stepping behind a stack of hay bales. You think you're stealthy, but one of them still sees you. The man with the rope points and squints. "You got business out here?" You freeze for a beat, then nod quickly, as if that explains everything. "Better be," he mutters, but they don't stop. They just keep trudging along, lantern swaying, their footsteps slow and disjointed. Here's a fun little historical twist. Not all towns even had a night watch. In smaller villages like this, the responsibility was passed around like a hot potato. Every able-bodied man might be expected to take a shift now and then, rotating through a sort of sleepy neighbourhood patrol that wasn't exactly trained or equipped for danger, which meant in practice most night watchers were more about presence than protection. A deterrent, or a very loud witness. And when something did go wrong? Well, it depended entirely on the watcher's motivation and sobriety levels. You finally reach the town square. It's not much, just a widening of the road where a few market stalls huddle under blankets and old canvas. There's a fountain at the centre, long dried up, and around it, wooden benches, and crates where people probably gather during the day to gossip and complain about taxes. Tonight, it's mostly empty, except for a figure sitting by the fountain, feeding scraps to a one-eyed cat. You approach cautiously. The figure, an older woman in layers of mismatched wool, glances up at you with surprising clarity. "Looking for trouble?" she asks, tossing another scrap toward the cat. You shake your head. "Then don't talk to strangers," she says, which feels slightly ironic coming from her. Then she stands and shuffles off into the shadows, cat in tow. You take a moment to breathe here, letting the square's openness reset your nerves. But the night has that heavy, too quiet quality, like it's waiting for something. The air feels colder now, damp too, not from rain, but from the kind of creeping wetness that comes from centuries of stone holding in sorrow. The scholarly debate around medieval night law is actually pretty fascinating. Some argue that communities relied far more on mutual trust and shared responsibility than on formal systems. Others say that's just a romantic myth, and most of the time night was a free-for-all unless you were rich enough to hire a private guard or bribe the right person. What is clear is that the very concept of night had a totally different psychological weight. It wasn't just the absence of light, it was an active, living threat. You think you hear something behind you, a footstep, a whisper. You turn, nothing, but you don't relax. Not here, not now. You keep walking, sticking close to walls, trying to avoid the middle of the road. Ironically, the open feels more dangerous than the darkened corners. Suddenly, a loud clang echoes from behind you. A metal bucket kicked over, maybe. You spin around again, still nothing. That's the thing about this kind of night. You start to question your senses. Is that a person? A shadow? Just smoke? Your ears strain so hard that your own heartbeat starts to sound like footsteps behind you. You pass another shuttered window and hear hushed voices inside. Urgent. Nervous. Maybe they're arguing. Maybe they're praying. You'll never know, and they'll never open the door for you to ask. As you head back toward the southern edge of the village, a strange makutut settles. No wind, no movement. Even the torches are burning lower now. Then softly, a bell rings. It's not an alarm. It's Compline, the final church bell of the evening. One of the monks up at the abbey near the woods is marking the hour, and just like that the whole village seems to exhale. Not with relief exactly, but with finality. It's night now, really night. And whether you're watching, hiding, or just hoping to make it to morning, this is where the rules go soft. You stand in the square alone again, wrapped in shadows, and realise you're not sure where to go next. You decide to follow the sound of that bell. Not because you suddenly feel devout, or because you think the monks are going to roll out a welcome mat and offer you warm soup. No, it's more about survival logic. Churches are big, stone, and probably less likely to catch fire or explode in the middle of the night. Also, let's be honest, you're kind of hoping someone in robes might know what's going on around here. The path leading up to the abbey winds behind the village, cutting through damp fields and a few scattered outbuildings. The night air thickens again as you walk. Noises change, the distant chatter of villagers fades, replaced by the more unsettling kinds of sounds. Low rustling, an owl hooting, the distinct snap of a twig far too close to be comforting. You pass by what might be a shed, or possibly a very sad attempt at a stable. There's a horse inside, or something pretending to be a horse. It snorts once, eyes reflecting the torchlight in a way that makes you reconsider making eye contact. You keep walking faster now. At the top of the hill, the abbey looms out of the dark like some kind of fortress-turned beehive. Stone walls, tall towers, narrow windows like watching eyes. You can hear more bells echoing from within. Not chaotic, just steady. Punctual in the unnerving way only monks and military captains manage. And outside, standing in the torchlight near the gate, are two men. Not guards exactly, but definitely not the sleepy village patrol either. They're in brown robes, ropes tied at the waist, hoods down. One of them is yawning, the other is watching you approach with the kind of expression that says, "Please keep moving unless you're about to confess something fascinating." "Compline's over," he says as you near. You nod, unsure what to say. The truth feels weird here. "Hi. Yes. I'm just wandering around a medieval village at night because I'm on some kind of cursed history tour and trying not to get stabbed or hexed. Also, I may have offended a goose." The monk waits a beat, then shrugs. "You can wait here if you want. No one comes in after the bell." You thank him quietly and take a seat on a low stone bench just inside the gate. The air smells different here. Cleaner somehow, still earthy, but with that cold stone scent that always clings to churches and ancient cellars. You breathe it in gratefully. At least it's not manure. As you sit, you watch the night watchmen pass again down out below, their torchlight bobbing like tiny boats on a black sea. They are not looking up here, maybe because they trust the monks, or maybe because this place gives even them the creeps. The monk who spoke to you settles into a standing position by the gate, arms crossed. He's young, surprisingly so, with a tired kind of seriousness. "You shouldn't be out here," he says without looking at you. "At night, I mean. It's not safe." You nod. "I'm getting that." He glances over. "Especially not during the dark moon." "The what now?" You squint up at the sky, but sure enough the moon is just a thin ghost tonight. Barely there. The stars seem brighter in its absence, but the effect is more sinister than romantic. The monk picks up on your confusion. No moon means the veil is thinner. Old belief, not doctrine. He taps the side of his nose and grins faintly. "Still, lots of things move on a dark moon. Some of them shouldn't." "Okay, fantastic. Just what you needed. A medieval cosmic forecast that predicts ghosts, curses, and things that go bump louder than rats. But you stay put. Something about the abbey, even with its unsettling aura and suspiciously vague monks, feels safer than the rest of the village. Or maybe you're just too tired to wander anymore. Your feet ache. Your head's pounding from torch smoke, and your stomach has started to protest the lack of anything resembling dinner. Eventually the gate monk stretches, yawns, and mutters something about prayers. "You're welcome to sit until matins," he says. "Just don't go inside." That's comforting. Left alone, you take in your surroundings. The abbey courtyard is quiet, but not silent. Somewhere behind those stone walls you can hear soft chanting. It's not spooky exactly. It's more like background noise from a dream you don't remember falling into. Deep voices, steady and slow. The kind of chant that's been looping for centuries. And here's where it gets weird, in a fringe fact kind of way. Did you know some night watches included monks who patrolled not for criminals, but for souls? In certain parts of Europe it was believed that the spirits of the dead might return on moonless nights, and special prayers or patrols were assigned to keep them in check. These weren't exorcisms necessarily, just spiritual maintenance, like ghost pest control. You sit with that thought for a while, staring at the chapel door. It's carved with symbols you don't recognise, probably religious, probably fine, but in the flicker of torchlight, one of them looks like a spiral that keeps moving even though you know it shouldn't. You blink and it stops. You're probably just tired, and that's when you hear it, a creak from inside the abbey. Not the soft groan of wood, but something sharper, like iron on stone. A gate, a door. You glance at the monk, but he's disappeared. Did he go to pray? Or did he leave because he didn't want to see what might come out? You rise slowly, instinct screaming at you to back away from the building. But your feet have that frozen dream quality, like you're moving through syrup. Another sound. This time a soft dragging noise. Not from inside, from behind you. You whip around. Nothing. You're alone. Completely. Then a wind picks up. Just a brief gust, enough to rattle the torch and whip your cloak around your knees, and with it comes a smell. Not manure, not smoke, something older. Like damp parchment, like mildew, like dust in a sealed crypt. You back away, fast now, heart thudding, and descend the hill the way you came. As you reach the edge of the Abbey's field, the chanting inside suddenly stops, all at once, just silence. You don't look back, you don't stop until you're well into the village again, surrounded by flickering torches and the vaguely comforting sounds of drunks arguing about bread. Religious sanctity, it turns out, doesn't always feel holy. Sometimes it feels like something is watching you from behind a stone wall, just waiting for the next dark moon. You slow your pace only once the Abbey's silhouette vanishes behind the rooftops. Back in the main village, things feel almost normal again. If your version of normal includes a goat standing in the middle of the road like it owns the place, chewing on something that suspiciously resembles someone's laundry. You skirt around it, not in the mood to argue with livestock tonight. Not after the Abbey. Not after those carvings. Not after that smell. The road bends sharply, leading you out past the last rows of houses. Beyond them, fields black as ink, and beyond that, the woods. You can see them from here. Not clearly, nothing in this darkness is ever truly clear, but the vague suggestion of branches, dense and tangled, like a mass of arms stretching skyward, frozen mid-reach. No leaves now, it's the wrong season. Just bare, knotted limbs clawing at the stars. You should turn back. Every old story says not to go into the woods at night, and yet, you hear something soft and distant. Not words, not music, just a rhythm. Drums, hooves, heartbeat. You can't tell, but it's coming from the trees. Curiosity, in your case, is apparently stronger than self-preservation, because you step off the road and follow it. The air changes the second you leave the village boundary. The warmth from the hearths and torches behind you vanishes instantly. It's like someone slammed a door between worlds. The wind here doesn't blow, it creeps, moves low and cold across your ankles like it's feeling you out. You wrap your cloak tighter. The path into the woods is narrow and ill-used. Mud clings to your boots in thick clumps. Branches reach down, brushing your face, tugging your hood. You hear an owl above you. No, wait, maybe not an owl. Something with wings, definitely, but not the comforting kind. And still, that rhythm pulses ahead of you. Medieval forests at night were basically the stuff of nightmares. Literally. Folklore is soaked with stories of things that only appear after dark among the trees. Creatures that didn't need names because everyone already knew what they were. It wasn't just wolves, although those were very real and very terrifying. It was the other things. Shapeshifters, goblins, forest hags, lights that lured you deeper until you vanished forever. And yet people went in. For firewood, for herbs, for secret meetings and riskier things, smuggled goods, forbidden rituals, or the occasional star-crossed rendezvous. The woods didn't just hide monsters, they hid sins. You stop walking. The drumming has gone silent. That's somehow worse. You're deep in now. Behind you, the vicinity. Village might as well not exist. Ahead, only blackness, the scent of wet moss, and a faint hint of smoke. Not torch smoke. This is richer, spicier. Like incense and pine needles smouldering on a fire. Then you see it. Just ahead, through a gap in the trees, a clearing flickers with low firelight. You drop to a crouch instinctively, moving closer without stepping fully into view. Through the underbrush you spy figures, 3, maybe 4, moving around a small flame. Not dancing exactly, but there's a rhythm to their steps, like they're part of something older than choreography. No speaking, no chanting, just movement. They're cloaked, masked. One wears an antlered headdress so large it tilts when they bend. Another holds a bowl, pouring something thick and red into the fire. You don't breathe. You've stumbled onto a ritual. Pagan? Maybe. But it doesn't feel theatrical. There's no sense of performance here. Just quiet, focused intensity. Like they're trying to make something happen, or prevent something worse. You lean forward slightly, trying to see more, when a twig snaps under your foot. Instantly, one of the figures turns. You freeze, pressed against the trunk of a tree, barely daring to blink. They don't speak, but they've seen you. You know it. The others stop moving. A long somnolence stretches between you, the fire crackling softly in the centre. The figure tilts their head, slowly, deliberately. Then they go back to the ritual, as if your presence means nothing, or as if it was expected. You decide that's your cue to leave. Backing away slowly, you retrace your steps through the trees. You don't run. Running is how you trip and get caught in legends. You walk steadily, eyes forward, ears alert. As you emerge back onto the dirt road, the village looks different. Still dimly lit, still quiet, but somehow more fragile. Like now you've seen what grows just outside its edges. You can't unsee it. These torchlit homes, these sleeping people, they're just a thin crust laid over something ancient, something hungry. You glance back at the woods. You swear you see the faintest glimmer of antlers moving between the trees, then nothing. There's actually a scholarly debate about how common off the books religious practices were during the Middle Ages. The Church officially stamped out most pre-Christian rituals, officially being the key word. But go far enough into the woods, or deep enough into rural customs, and you will find echoes of the old ways. Fire festivals, solstice rites, protective charms carved into beams and doorframes. Even some monks practiced odd hybrid beliefs. Blending scripture with folk magic, it's possible what you saw wasn't blasphemous, just ancient. Older than the village, maybe older than the church itself. Back among the houses, you feel exposed again. The walls don't comfort you the way the trees did. Now you notice every creak of wood, every soft footfall that might not be yours. The night watch hasn't been by in a while. That worries you more than it should. A window creaks open above you. An old woman leans out, squinting. You weren't in the woods, were you? You pause. Just walking. She nods slowly, then mutters, "Let's keep walking then," and shuts the window before you can ask anything else. You keep walking, because you understand now. The woods are always watching, and not everything that lives in the dark is trying to hide. You don't realise you're heading toward the tavern until you smell it first. Smoke, sweat, stale ale, and that oddly comforting mix of roasted meat and something burning just a little too long. A torch burns brighter here, its light casting jittery shadows across the uneven plank sign above the door. The sign creaks in the breeze, swinging lazily, as if even it's half drunk. The tavern is loud in that barely contained kind of way, like a pot lid that's just starting to rattle. From outside you hear a shout, then laughter, then a sudden silence that feels too sharp to be natural. Someone might be bleeding, someone might just be singing off-key. It's honestly a 50-50 shot at this hour. You take a breath, push open the heavy wooden door and step into what feels like another universe entirely. The tavern is alive, dimly lit, smoky, and pulsing with chaotic energy. People are packed in elbow to elbow, clustered around wooden tables stained with generations of spilled drink and old gossip. The air is thick and wet with sweat, and there's a low droning hum of voices, clanking mugs, and the occasional crash of something that used to be whole. No one greets you, no one even looks up. That might be a good sign. You drift toward the back, past a bearded man shouting a story no one is listening to, a woman laughing at absolutely nothing, and a bored-looking hound lying under the table, licking something from the floor that you hope, really hope, is food. You sit on a bench along the wall, trying to look like you belong. No one offers you ale, you didn't bring a cup, and frankly, you're not sure you want one. The mugs on these tables are so crusted over they look fossilised. A man 3 seats down is drinking something bright green. That's not a good sign. Still, it's warm, it's noisy, and for the first time tonight, you feel like maybe you won't be dragged off by something with hooves and antlers. At least not yet. Let's talk about medieval taverns for a moment, because they're not quite what modern folks picture. Sure, there's ale, and maybe food if the fire didn't go out or the cook didn't storm off again. But these weren't always the cosy rustic inns of fantasy novels. Most were barely ventilated, single-room chaos factories where travellers, peasants, traders, and the occasional criminal rubbed shoulders and swapped stories, along with fleas, knives, and venereal diseases. Also, they weren't exactly regulated. In a lot of towns, anyone with a big enough cauldron and some grain mash could start serving ale, which means the quality varied somewhere between unexpectedly tolerable, and you'll hallucinate for 3 days and wake up with a goat. The man next to you slams his mug down and shouts something in your general direction. You don't understand a single word. He might be asking your name, or challenging you to a duel. Either way, you nod politely and glance away, hoping the universal signal of "please don't make me bleed" still works in this century. A few seats down, 2 men are playing some kind of dice game on the table, their coins shattered like breadcrumbs. Every now and then, one of them slams a fist down and shouts in victory or despair, and a nearby woman cackles like it's the funniest thing she's heard all year. The fire crackles in the hearth, casting long shadows across the low ceiling beams. Above the bar, bundles of dried herbs hang upside down. Sage, maybe, or something more local and experimental. Possibly just weeds someone thought looked magical, and yet they sway subtly. Even when the air is still, you choose not to stare at them too long. Behind the counter, the tavern keeper is a massive man with a tunic stretched tight over his belly and a perpetual sneer that might just be his face at rest. He eyes the room like a battlefield commander, occasionally refilling mugs with a massive wooden ladle dipped into a barrel that you really hope isn't doubling as a mop bucket. Then the door bursts open, a man staggers in, bleeding from the forehead, half of his shirt torn and flapping behind him like a forgotten banner. He yells something incoherent, some mix of thief, liar, and possibly goat again, and a mug flies across the room in response. It misses him entirely and hits the wall with a sound that makes everyone flinch, but no one react. Just like that, the brawl starts. It's not a coordinated thing, no one stands on ceremony. It's more like a domino of tension finally tipping. Fists flying, benches toppling, dice scattering. The man next to you flips the table without warning, sending your knees into your chest and your nerves into orbit. You duck low, crawling beneath the chaos as chairs clatter and someone screams in delight or agony. Hard to tell. A woman stands on a barrel shouting, "Get him, Hugh!" while someone named Hugh is busy getting kicked in the ribs by a man half his size and twice his speed. This apparently is entertainment. Because here's the reality. Medieval nightlife didn't include theatres, clubs, or movie nights. If you wanted to unwind after a long day of fieldwork, what were your options? Go home to your drafty shack and snore next to a goat? Or head to the one place with firelight, booze, questionable stew, and the occasional opportunity to break someone's nose without lasting legal consequence? Taverns were equal parts escape, community, and pressure release. Tempers flared, feuds reignited, and if you left with all your teeth, that counted as a win. You finally crawl your way toward the fireplace, shielding your head as another mug arcs overhead and explodes in a shower of splinters. 2 men are grappling nearby, knocking over a bench and landing hard, laughing like idiots even as blood trickles from one of their mouths. And you somehow start laughing too, not because it's funny, but because it's absurd. The whole night has been one long fever dream, and now you're crouched beside a fireplace covered in soot, dodging flying crockery in a bar brawl that may or may not have started over a dice roll or a goat insult. Eventually, the fight burns itself out. People slump back into seats. Someone starts tuning a lute. The tavern keeper throws a bucket of water onto the centre of the floor and kicks a passed-out man into a corner. The chaos cools, the hum resumes. You settle back onto a bench, heart still racing, cheeks flushed, hair full of ash. You're still alive, for now. The tavern eventually exhales into a kind of groggy truce. The fight bleeds out of the room like smoke from a dying fire. The dice players return to their scattered coins, licking wounds and throwing half-hearted insults. The woman with the barrel now sits on it, nursing a tankard and grinning like someone who just watched a particularly satisfying puppet show. The tavern keeper glares at the mess but doesn't bother cleaning it up. He knows it'll be replaced with new messes before the hour's out. You sit very still, heart still thudding against your ribs, like it wants to break free and start a new life somewhere quieter. You're officially soaked in tavern stink now. Ale, sweat, dirt, blood, someone else's probably, and a trace of something unidentifiable that might be boiled cabbage or maybe regret. But as you catch your breath, you notice something else. A low rumble. No, not a sound, more a presence, a shift in the energy of the room. The door creaks open again. And this time the reaction is immediate and obvious. Everyone freezes. Even the man tuning the lute suddenly goes very still, one hand hovering above a broken string. All conversation dies. You watch heads slowly turn toward the entrance. and then you see them. 3 figures step inside, covered head to toe in long dark cloaks. Their faces are hidden beneath deep hoods, and they move with eerie calm. One carries a staff. Another holds a small bell that jangles softly as they walk, each ring sounding more like a death toll than a welcome. You've never seen a group part faster than the crowd in this tavern. Benches scrape, feet shuffle, mugs are pulled back protectively, and bodies angle away with practiced unease, because the plague patrol has arrived. That's what you're looking at. Unofficially official, grimly dedicated, and barely tolerated. During outbreaks of illness, especially the Black Death, many towns formed their own groups to handle the unhandleable. People who volunteered or were volunteered to collect bodies, quarantine the sick, and burn contaminated belongings. Not heroes, not doctors, just regular folks doing the worst job imaginable. And you can tell, these aren't powerful knights or holy priests, these are the exhausted and the resigned. Their clothing, now that you look closer, is smeared with ash and something darker. One of them drags a wooden cart behind them, its wheels squeaking in slow rhythm. It's empty. For now. The tavern keeper doesn't say a word. He just gestures with his chin toward a dark corner, and the figures glide in that direction without acknowledgement. A man slumped in a chair there doesn't move as they approach. You're not sure if he's asleep, unconscious, or already halfway to the next life. The one with the staff bends, checks his pulse, or maybe just his eyes, and nods. "No," says one in a gravel-thick voice. "Not yet." The other 2 seem disappointed, or maybe just tired. One pulls a pouch from under their cloak and tosses it onto the table next to the man. Powder, by the look of it. Herbs. They murmur something you can't hear and move on, leaving behind a faint trail of decay and cloves. There's an audible exhale from the room when they go. The tension loosens, but it doesn't vanish. You glance around and notice the stains, the 2 pale faces, the way a few people cough into their sleeves and glance sideways to see if anyone noticed. You're not just in a tavern tonight. You're in a pressure cooker waiting for the whistle. In case you haven't put it together yet, disease didn't just hit medieval towns. It haunted them. The plague, in particular, was less a sickness and more a reality-altering nightmare. It didn't just kill people, it rewrote the rules. Time warped, social order broke down. Funerals became fire pits, priests stopped answering doors. Rich and poor died alike, though the poor got less time to flee. In places like this, after sunset, plague patrols walk the streets with carts and bells, warning people to stay back, or warning them their time had come. And while some towns had rudimentary quarantine protocols, marking doors with chalk crosses for example, others handled things the old-fashioned way, with superstition, desperation and the occasional fire. You take a sip from someone else's abandoned mug without thinking, then gag immediately. Ale, vinegar, something herbal that's been dead too long? You set it down and wipe your tongue with your sleeve. Risking disease feels less theoretical now. The tavern noise creeps back slowly, but it's different. Lower. Muted. As if everyone's pretending they didn't just share space with death in a hooded robe. A man near you leans over and says, "Don't touch anything they leave behind, not even the silver." Then he winks and returns to his game of dice, like that was just a friendly little tip, somewhere between watch for pickpockets and don't pet the dog. You rise slowly, your muscles stiff and weirdly sore. The tavern's lost its charm, or maybe you've just hit your threshold for mortal danger per hour. You step back outside, greeted by cold air and the gentle stink of refuse. The street feels quieter now, and darker. Either someone doused a torch or the moon has ducked behind a cloud. You glance both ways before moving, an instinct that feels more necessary with each passing hour. As you walk, you pass a small alleyway and stop. Someone's there. A child, maybe, or a very small adult. Wrapped in a cloak that's far too big, crouched beside a bundle that looks suspiciously like a body. They're whispering something, rocking back and forth. You catch only a few words. Not gone. Just sleeping. Not gone. You take a step closer. The figure snaps its head up and hisses. Actually hisses at you. Its eyes catch the torchlight like a cat's, then it turns and vanishes down the alley, dragging the bundle with it. You don't follow. You shouldn't have seen that. Because here's the fringe detail. Not everyone trusted the plague patrols. In fact, in many towns, people hid their dead. They didn't want them taken away, burned, or buried in mass graves. Families kept corpses in basements, tried to nurse the sick in secret, even swapped names to avoid detection. For some, grief overrode fear. For others, desperation did. You stand there a moment longer, staring into the darkness where the child thing vanished. The alley seems empty now. Just wet cobbles and shadows that don't move. But you move, because if tonight's taught you anything, it's that standing still is how you become someone else's midnight story. You drift down a narrow lane where the air feels warmer, thicker, almost humming with something. Not the anxiety of plague patrols or the animal tension of the tavern, but something else entirely. The shadows here move differently, they dance. You hear it before you see it. The low thump of drums, hands slapping skins with primal rhythm, uneven but urgent. Laughter floats on the breeze, wild, breathless, not the polite kind you hear around firelight in noble halls. This laughter is untamed, and under it, the faint sound of feet pounding against packed dirt in perfect chaos. You follow the noise around a bend and stumble into something unexpected. At the edge of the village, where the fields give way to tree roots and overgrown stone walls, a fire burns in a wide open space. Not a hearth fire, not a ceremonial church candle, a bonfire, big, crackling, dangerous, the kind that eats whole logs and roars every time someone throws in another armful of brush. Figures surround it. Not villagers, at least not by daytime standards. These people are barefoot. Dressed in scraps and wraps and strange cloths. They move like animals, or maybe like something older than animals. Like wind and fire and instinct. Some wear masks. Others paint their faces with soot and berry juice, giving them a half-feral, half-theatrical appearance. And they are dancing. Oh, are they dancing? In circles, in lines, in spirals you can't track with your eyes. They jump and stomp and twist with abandon, slapping their legs, spinning on heels, flinging their arms toward the night sky like they are trying to rip it open. And the drums, those are played by seated figures, backs straight, eyes wide, palms pounding the beat into the earth as if commanding it to wake. One woman dances alone near the centre, hair loose, skirt swirling, hands raised. Her feet never quite seem to touch the ground. You blink, maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Nobody seems to notice you've arrived, or maybe they do and you're just allowed. There's no fear here, no curfew, no night watch patrols. This is a different set of rules entirely. One the rest of the village pretends doesn't exist. You edge closer, drawn by the fire, by the rhythm, by the sheer wildness of it. There's something infectious about this kind of joy, the kind that doesn't need approval or audience. These people aren't performing, they're participating. They're letting something ancient rise up through them, and it's messy and sweaty and loud and absolutely alive. And look, let's not pretend the medieval church was thrilled about this kind of thing. Pagan is the word they'd use. Unholy revelry, maybe. But the truth is, not everything outside the chapel walls was satanic. Some of it was simply older. Farmers celebrating harvest moons, women honouring fertility rites, songs and dances passed down from grandmothers whose names are long forgotten. Stuff that survived the conversion from paganism to Christianity by ducking into the shadows and learning to whisper. Tonight, it's not whispering, it's shouting. Someone hands you a cup. You don't ask what's in it, you just drink. It tastes like fruit gone just a little wrong, fermented, yes, but with something sharp and herbal underneath. Instantly your skin feels warmer, your limbs looser, your doubts thinner. A man beside you leans in, his teeth stained red. "It's solstice wine," he says. "Don't worry. It just opens the heart." You look into the cup again. You're not sure if that's a good thing. More people arrive. Not all from the village. Some wear clothes that suggest long travel. Others wear nothing but a few strategically placed sashes. There's a man with bells sewn into his sleeves, every movement a song. A child no older than 10 spins in dizzy circles, trailing ribbons from her hands. Then there are the symbols. Etched into the dirt around the fire, in charcoal and crushed petals, are circles, spirals, runes you don't recognize. Someone steps over one, carefully avoiding the edges, and mutters something under their breath. Another figure stoops to refresh a symbol with powdered bone. It's theatrical. It's theatrical and serious. This isn't just a party. It's a ritual. A big, messy, deeply human one. And here's the quirky thing. For all the official outlawing of pagan festivals, many rural communities kept doing them anyway, just under new names. Beltane became May Day. The harvest festival was folded into St. Martin's Day. Even some nativity traditions got layered over older midwinter rites. So what you're seeing tonight is technically heretical, and absolutely commonplace. No one here seems to care what's allowed. A woman approaches you, her face painted with ash and honey, her smile slow and knowing. She presses something into your hand. You look down. It's a small object, warm from her palm, a carved piece of wood shaped like an eye. "For watching," she says, then twirls away, lost in the dancing bodies. You pocket it without thinking. Someone tosses another log onto the fire. Sparks fly into the night sky like frantic fireflies. The smoke turns thick and strangely sweet, wrapping around the clearing like a curtain. You breathe it in and feel something shift. It's not just the wine, it's the sense that you're seeing a side of medieval life that the history books rarely mention, the kind that doesn't get painted into illuminated manuscripts or recited in sermons. But it's real as the mud between your toes, the smoke in your lungs, the sweat on your back, and it's joyful, maybe dangerous, but joyful. You sit near the edge of the clearing now, sipping the last of the wine, watching a pair of dancers leap the flames in tandem. The crowd cheers. Someone plays a flute now, fast and shrill and hypnotic. The moon peeks from behind the clouds, just a sliver, but enough to catch on all the eyes and teeth and painted skin around the fire. You realise, with a strange and not unpleasant tingle down your spine, that you don't know what time it is. You don't know how long you've been here. And for the first time tonight, that doesn't feel terrifying, just honest. But the wind shifts again, and in it you hear something else. A bell, faint and sharp, the kind the plague patrol carries. Or maybe it's just a goat with indigestion. Hard to say. Still, the fire blazes on, the dancers leap, the woods sway with the music, and you, just for a moment, let yourself smile. Because even in the darkest night, even with everything lurking out there in the shadows, people still find ways to live. The fire's warmth still lingers on your skin as you leave the clearing behind. Your steps are slower now, like the night's rhythm has worked its way into your bones. Every footfall feels deliberate, soft on the dirt path, muffled by dew and grass. Behind you the drumming fades, the laughter fades, and the last sparks from the bonfire trail into the sky like wishes no one dared speak aloud. You're heading toward the high ground now, toward the manor on the hill. From this distance the castle isn't grand. It's not the soaring Gothic stone of kings and fairy tales. It's more practical, more fortress than fantasy. A squat grey pile of stone surrounded by a curtain wall and a dry moat, its battlements jagged like broken teeth. But there's still a sense of power in its silhouette, a sense that this is where the rules are made, where the coins live, and where people sleep on feather beds instead of straw. As you climb the hill, the village seems to shrink behind you. You can just make out the torch posts, the roof lines, the glint of the chapel's stained glass reflecting moonlight. But up here, it's quieter, cleaner, almost unnaturally so. You don't smell manure, you don't hear arguing, just wind and stone and the soft patter of your own breath. You reach the castle gate. It's not locked. No guards are posted. That's unusual. Even more unusual, the gate is slightly open. You're either being welcomed in or walked into something that's going to end with your bones buried under a wine cellar. But you push the gate gently and step inside. The courtyard is empty. The torches burn low but steady. A fountain at the centre trickles water into a mossy basin, and above it you can see carved lions on the walls, weathered, crumbling, but still snarling. The stone underfoot is smooth, polished by centuries of feet more important than yours. You make your way toward the main keep, following the flicker of torchlight through an open doorway. Inside, the change is immediate. The air is warmer, perfumed. The stone walls are hung with tapestries, giant, colourful things that cover the cold and display scenes of hunting, feasting, war. There's a dog the size of a deer stitched into one, mid-leap, its eyes wide and unsettlingly human. Another shows a knight holding a golden chalice, while a group of monks melt into the background. You don't linger on that one. The floor here isn't just swept, it's covered in rushes that have been perfumed with dried lavender and chamomile. You can actually smell flowers. In a medieval building, your brain struggles to accept it. You turn a corner and suddenly there's music. Not wild drumming this time, but soft, graceful notes played on a harp. A voice hums along with it, feminine, delicate, but slightly off-key. You follow it, because of course you do, and it leads you into what can only be described as a drawing room. You're in the world of the noble class, and it's weird. Candles flicker in elaborate holders made of iron and bone. There's a fire in the hearth, but it's not for cooking, just ambience and heat. Silk pillows are arranged on benches. There's actual furniture. And reclining on one of those benches is a woman in a deep burgundy gown, her hair braided in a style that probably took 3 hours and at least 2 other people to complete. She doesn't flinch when you enter. She just watches you, head tilted, smile small and unreadable. "You're not from here," she says, voice smooth as melted honey. You don't know how to respond, so you just nod. A safe, neutral lie. She gestures to the cushion across from her. "Sit then. You've seen the outer world, now see the inner." You do as you're told. The cushion is absurdly soft. You feel vaguely insulted by how comfortable it is. You've spent the last several hours dodging plague carts and dancing around bonfires, and now you're sinking into luxury like a sack of potatoes at a royal wedding. Servants move through the room without sound, placing goblets and fruits and little roasted birds onto platters like some kind of elaborate performance art. No one looks at you, not even the page boy who sets a warm towel next to your elbow, as if it's perfectly normal for a mud-crusted stranger to show up uninvited. The lady takes a sip from her cup, then says, "Do they still dance by the fire in the village?" You blink. "Yes," she smiles. "Good. I worry they've forgotten. We used to go, you know. Before everything." She doesn't elaborate. You don't ask. The room smells like rosewater and wine and something slightly metallic, like a polished sword. Noble life at night, it turns out, is a strange mix of boredom and ritual. The peasants might spend their evenings working, praying, fighting, or falling into ditches, but up here, night is entertainment. A slow, curated affair of food, music, and polite conversation filled with venom just beneath the surface. And not all noble households slept at night either. There were late readings, embroidery circles that doubled as gossip sessions, candlelit chess matches between siblings who hated each other with passion, and inherited trauma. If you were rich, you could afford to be awake after dark. You could afford light, heat, safety. But here's the thing, just because it's beautiful doesn't mean it's safe, because now that you're sitting here, you notice something odd. Everyone in this room, aside from the servants, has a sort of stillness to them. Not peace. Stillness. Like statues. Like wax figures waiting to be uncovered by a museum curator in a few hundred years. A nobleman on the other side of the room lifts a goblet to his lips and drinks, but his eyes don't blink. The harp player plucks strings with perfect grace but doesn't look down. And the lady across from you? She hasn't moved once since you sat. Not even to breathe. You glance around, suddenly chilled despite the fire. The flickering candles, the wine, the silence, it all feels staged. Then you hear it. From somewhere deeper in the castle, a slow knock. 1, 2, 3. No one reacts. Another knock. Slower now, and this time you hear a voice, low, ragged. "Let me in." Your host smiles. "You hear that?" she asks softly. "That's our guest. He always arrives late." You stand. She doesn't stop you. You turn and leave the room, moving faster now, trying not to run. The hallways are longer than before. The tapestries seem different. One shows a man with a bird's head devouring his own foot. Another shows the village on fire. You don't look back, because if you do, you're afraid that room won't be a room anymore. Just a painting, with you inside it. You don't remember leaving the castle. 1 minute, you're speed-walking past tapestries of burning villages and bird-headed nightmares. The next, you're outside, cold air slapping your cheeks like a disappointed parent. The heavy wooden gate creaks shut behind you all on its own. No footsteps, no guards, no voices following, just the slow, almost affectionate groan of old hinges. And just like that, you're back on the path. The manor looming behind you in moody silence, its windows flickering faintly like it's trying to pretend nothing weird happened inside. You don't believe it for a second. The perfume still clings to your clothes, your fingers still smell like honeyed wine, and that metallic tang that may or may not have been blood. You shake it off, boots crunching over gravel and frost-dusted leaves. The air feels heavier now, as if the night's getting older and starting to settle into its most serious self. It's past the time when people sleep lightly. Now it's deep sleep, the kind where even dreams can't find you, the kind where if something does wake you, it's probably not a good sign. You're about to head back toward the village proper when the bell rings again. Not a curfew bell, not the plague patrol's little death chime, no, this one is deeper, slower. A church bell, tolling out the hour with ceremonial weight. Except, there's no way it's midnight. You're certain hours have passed, but not that many. You glance toward the chapel, its bell tower is mostly hidden behind tall elms, but the sound echoes through the empty streets. You feel it in your bones. 1 toll. Pause. 2. Pause. 3, but no 4th. Just silence. That's not how time works, but sure, let's pretend it's fine. You follow the road down past the smithy, the marketplace, and toward the small stone church perched near the village's edge. This building itself is unimpressive. A single bell tower, a wooden door reinforced with blackened iron, and narrow windows too small for light or hope. But it's awake. Someone is in there. Candlelight glows through the cracks, and you can hear chanting. Low, slow, unsettlingly calm. You reach for the door, not sure whether you're knocking or just entering. The handle moves before you touch it. The door swings open with a gentle click, and the scent of incense hits at you like a memory you never had. Cloves, myrrh, and something bitter underneath, like scorched rosemary. Inside, the space is nearly empty. A few wooden pews, a stone altar, stained glass as windows depicting saints with too many eyes. There are candles everywhere, dozens, hundreds, flickering on ledges, sconces the floor. The air is so thick with melted wax it coats your throat. And there they are, the monks, 4 of them draped in heavy robes the colour of old parchment. Hoods up, faces hidden. They chant in unison, their voices deep and droning, like a slow river running backward. The words are Latin, or maybe just sound like Latin. You can't tell. You only know that you shouldn't be hearing them. You ease into the back pew and sit, pretending to belong. They ignore you. The chant continues, looping endlessly, as if it never began and never will end. And then you notice something that makes your stomach drop. The candle flames don't flicker. At all. Not one of them, not even with the door wide open. They stand perfectly still like they've been frozen in time. And now that you're watching more closely, so do the monks. They move their mouths, their voices echo, but their bodies don't shift an inch. And you realise something else. There's no light source in the room strong enough to explain the glow. The candles. Too dim, the windows too small, and yet some space is bright. Brighter than it should be. It's unsettling. Churches were supposed to be sanctuaries, but in the medieval world they were also places of deep superstition and ritual. Sacred, yes, but not always comforting. They were fortresses against evil, but also full of fear. Relics, bones, whispers about saints who bled from the eyes, symbols carved into the stone that no one could quite explain. And monks? They weren't all quiet scribes and peaceful gardeners. Some lived lives of intense, obsessive devotion. Some took vows of silence so absolute they forgot how to speak. Others were locked in their monasteries for life, never once leaving the grounds. There were rumours, always rumours, that a few practiced rituals not found in any holy book, that they sang to the dead, that they listened when something in the earth whispered back. The chanting stops. All 4 monks turn toward you at once. You don't breathe. They don't speak. Then one of them lifts a hand and points toward the back wall. The candlelight shifts, and now you see it. Barely. A door, small, wooden, covered in soot. You would have missed it if you hadn't been told. Of course you're going to open it. That's your whole thing now. You stand and walk past the monks, who watch you with blank, flickering eyes. Their robes don't move. You swear their feet don't touch the ground. The door opens without resistance. Inside, a stairwell spiralling down. Stone steps, moist air, the sound of dripping water. You descend slowly, the door closes behind you. Darkness swallows the top of the stairs. Down here, the air is colder, mustier. You're in a crypt, maybe. Or a basement. There are alcoves cut into the stone filled with bones stacked neatly like firewood. Skulls grin from niches, teeth chipped and eyes empty. Someone arranged them with care. There's a central chamber, a stone slab, candles that never burn down, and in the middle of it all a small glass box. Inside it, resting gently on a silk pillow, is a severed hand. It's not rotting, it's not fresh, it's just there. One ring on its finger, golden, inscribed with letters you don't recognise. You hear the chanting again, far above, but this time it's louder. The walls seem to hum, your skin crawls, the bones on the shelves start to click softly against each other, as if stirred by wind. There is no wind. You back away slowly. The hand twitches. That's enough church for one night. You run. Back up the steps, through the chapel, past the monks, who are no longer facing you, but now kneeling, arms outstretched toward the altar as if in rapture or agony. You don't look closely. Out the door, back into the cold air, breathing hard, and you realise something terrible as you glance at the stars above. You've only made it halfway through the night. You're back on the road again, feet scraping through wet straw and loose stones, the chapel's candlelight fading behind you like a fever dream. You want to believe the monks were just enthusiastic, deeply devoted, the kind of people who collect finger bones in velvet boxes for entirely reasonable reasons, but deep down you know better. You can still feel the weight of that glass box in the back of your skull, still hear the soft click of bones like teeth chattering in anticipation. And now the village feels different, like it knows you saw something you weren't meant to, like the walls themselves are watching, leaning in a little closer. You glance up and spot windows cracked open just enough for eyes. You don't see faces, but that makes it worse. It's always the things you almost see that rot your sleep the hardest. You pass the butcher's shop, its door chained and shuttered, dried blood crusted on the stoop, flies still linger, buzzing softly in the shadows, even though there's nothing left to feast on. The sign above swings in the breeze, an axe and a pig's head, chipped and faded. And then you hear it, a scraping sound, soft at first, like a broom on cobblestones, then sharper, faster. You turn a corner and stop dead in your tracks. A figure is crouched low against the wall, moving in a slow, twitching crawl. Its limbs are too thin, its back arched like a cat's mid-hiss. Long fingers drag across the ground, pulling its body forward in painful jerks. It's wearing rags, once white fabric, now grey and slick with whatever it's been crawling through. Then you realise it's not crawling, it's searching for something. It lifts its head slowly, and you finally see the face, or what's left of it. No eyes, just empty sockets. The skin around them is cracked and weeping, the mouth slack and open. No tongue, just breath. Heavy, wet breath. It sniffs the air like a bloodhound. And then it says your name. You don't remember telling anyone your name. You take a step back. It shudders. Then it starts moving toward you. You run. You don't even try to be quiet. You bolt down the lane, feet slipping in muck, heart pounding loud enough to drown out your thoughts. The buildings blur past. Somewhere behind you, that thing is still scraping along, still whispering. Not your name anymore, just words you don't know. Sounds that feel like they were never meant to be spoken. You don't stop until you reach a large, low building, pressed tight between two others. The bathhouse. And yes, that's right. Medieval villages sometimes had bathhouses. Not all, and not always functional, but this one's real. Still standing. Steam drifts from a cracked wooden vent in the roof. And more importantly, the door is open. You duck inside, slamming the door behind you, leaning against it, chest heaving. Inside, the air is hot, wet, fogged with steam. The room is lit by small oil lamps, their flames flickering against damp stone walls. It smells of old water, damp wood, herbs, and something faintly sour. You're not alone. Figures move through the mist, slow, relaxed, bare feet slapping softly on the wet tile. Some wear linen shifts, others nothing at all. A few glance at you with mild curiosity, as if it's perfectly normal for someone to crash in out of breath and vaguely cursed. A woman near the centre beckons you. Her voice is soft, muffled by the humidity. "You look like you've seen the ghost rats," she says, chuckling as she pours water over her arms from a wooden bucket. "Come on then, scrub the night off." And you do, because what else can you do? You peel off your soaked outer layer and step toward one of the steaming pools. The heat hits you like a slap, sudden and cleansing. You sit on the edge, dipping your feet into the water. It's hotter than you expect, but not scalding. Just enough to make your skin feel like it's waking up for the first time in hours. Around you, the bathers murmur in soft tones. Not gossip, not quite. More like confessions, stories spilled to the steam. "My husband's gone 3 nights now," one says. "Swore he saw a figure in the well. Wouldn't shut up about it. Heard the goat gave birth to a baby with hands," another mutters. "Little curled fingers like a monk." You do your best not to react. One old woman scrubs her back with a bundle of herbs tied with twine. "They say the fleas carry voices now," she whispers. "You squash one and it screams like a baby." You blink, slowly. The bathwater sloshes gently as someone shifts beside you. In the corner, a man chants softly over and over the same phrase, "Not all who rot are dead, not all who rot are dead." No one stops him. One woman hums along like it's a lullaby. "Welcome to the Medieval After Hours Therapy Group. Here's your historical nugget. Bathhouses were more common than people think. Especially before the plague, they were social hubs where people bathed, gossiped, and sometimes engaged in other activities. They weren't squeaky clean, but they weren't medieval cesspools either. And sure, during times of disease some were shut down or condemned, but others stayed open out of sheer necessity. They were places where people pretended the world wasn't falling apart. You dip your whole leg into the water. The heat spreads through your thigh, loosening muscles you didn't even know were clenched. For a moment, just a flicker, you feel safe. Then a girl speaks from across the pool. "I saw you come from the chapel," she says. Her voice is young, maybe 10, but "Did you touch the hand?" You freeze. She's staring at you. Her hair slicked back, eyes too wide, too knowing. You shake your head. She smiles. "Doesn't matter. It touched you." You stand, too fast, the room tilts. The heat swirls. You grab your cloak, damp though it is, and stumble back to the door. Behind you no one stops you, but the chanting man has changed his tune. Now he's singing. Touched by bone, dragged by root, you'll join the line before the moon. You don't wait to hear the rest. Outside again, the night has cooled. The street is quieter now, like the village is holding its breath. You hear no patrols, no laughter, no bells, just your footsteps, and faintly the sound of fingernails scraping on stone. You walk fast now, head down, eyes darting, every sound behind you a maybe. The bathhouse fades into the mist. Its steam twisting into the air like smoke signals for something ancient and nosy. Your cloak clings to you with that sticky, post-steam room dampness that makes you feel like you've been slow-cooked, and the sweat on your neck is cooling into a nervous chill. But you're moving, and that's enough. For now. The night has deepened into that syrupy stage where time folds in on itself. Nothing feels linear anymore. You could swear it's been hours since the bells tolled, yet the moon is still dragging its heels across the same patch of sky, and the stars haven't budged an inch. You glance up just to check and realise there are fewer stars now, not because clouds have rolled in, no, they've simply gone out. Like someone snuffing them one by one, which is, super comforting. You turn left at the weaver's shop, at our abandoned herb. The looms inside long still, and follow a narrow path that winds between a collapsed fence and a small orchard of dead trees. Their branches creak softly in the wind, like they're whispering secrets just loud enough to torment you. And then you see it. A low, crooked building half hidden by overgrowth. Its roof sagging, its stone walls crumbling under ivy and time. A faded wooden sign above the door reads Elspeth Herbalist. The E is missing. The rest of the letters look like they're barely holding on. You're not here by accident. Back at the bathhouse, someone mentioned her. The girl, maybe, or the chanting man. Hard to say who said what anymore. But they spoke the name with a kind of hushed respect, not fear exactly, but that specific blend of awe and suspicion reserved for people who live alone. Know too much. And have jars labelled with things like tincture of crowfoot. You knock once. No answer. You push the door open. Inside it's dim and cramped, but it smells amazing, like rosemary, mint, and the deep sweet rot of damp earth. Herbs hang from the ceiling in thick bundles, some dried and crackling, others still fresh and green. Jars line every available surface, filled with liquids of every colour and texture. Some glow faintly. Others have things floating in them that look like tiny arms, or roots, or both. Elspeth sits near the hearth, stirring something thick and purple in a pot the size of your chest, or... She doesn't look up. She doesn't have to. "You're late," she says. You swallow, Yuri, she snorts. "Don't apologise, just means the rest of the night will be messier." She gestures to a stool and you sit, grateful for something that isn't wet or haunted. Elspeth is old, but not brittle. Her back is straight, her hand steady. Her eyes are clear and bright in a way that suggests she's looking at more than just you. She dips a wooden spoon into the pot, sniffs it. then adds a pinch of something red and powdery that looks suspiciously like dried beetles or cursed paprika. "You've seen the hand," she says without turning around. It's not a question. You nod anyway. "And the watchers? The monks?" She shakes her head. "The watchers. Those who see the rot before it blooms. The ones who never close their eyes, even in sleep." You hesitate. "Maybe." "Then it's already in you," she says. "Great." She finally turns to face you and hands you a cup filled with something thick and steaming. It's green. It smells like mint and onions and regret and drink. You do, because this is not the kind of woman you say no to. The liquid burns down your throat, then spreads through your chest like lightning made of soup. You cough. She watches. "You'll need your mind sharp," she says. Before the dreaming begins, you blink. The what now? Elspeth stands and begins gathering items from her shelves. A feather, a clump of moss, something that may or may not have once been a bird's heart. "This village," she says, "was built on the bones of something old, before the chapel, before the Lord's Hall, before the bells. The land remembers." She crushes the moss into a paste with a stone pestle, then mixes it into another vial. Every few decades the rot comes back. Not just the plague, not just hunger, the rot. It moves beneath us. It listens. It waits for cracks. She pours the mixture into a small vial and hands it to you. "When you dream tonight, it will find you." That sounds very bad. "There's worse than that," she says, smiling faintly. "But you're lucky. It usually chooses children." The way she says it, usually, makes you clutch the vial a little tighter. She gestures toward a cot in the corner of the room. "Sleep here. You won't find rest anywhere else. I've salted the beams and burned the right leaves. You might still scream, but at least nothing will enter." You glance at the cot. Thin mattress, lumpy pillow. Still looks like heaven, but something's nagging at you. "What about the villagers? The others?" Elspeth returns to her pot, stirring slowly. "Some know, most pretend not to. That's always how it is. Even in plague, they'll explain away the dead. Say it's just fever, or madness, or rats," she shrugs. "We all choose our comforts." You lie down, the mattress creaks under your weight, and the pillow smells faintly of lavender and garlic. You feel warm, heavy. Your eyelids start to slide down like theatre curtains. But before sleep takes you, Elspeth speaks again. "If the hand follows you in the dream, don't touch it." You try to reply, but your mouth is cotton. The room spins. The herbs blur into streaks of colour. The fire dances sideways, and then you're dreaming. You're in the chapel again. But this time the monks are gone. The pews are filled with villagers, mouths stitched shut, heads bowed, hands bleeding. The stained glass pulses like a heartbeat. The bell tolls, but it's not from the tower. It's inside your head. A voice whispers from behind the altar. "I see you." You turn, but there's nothing there. Then the hand crawls out, fingers twitching, dragging its own wristless stump across the stone. It wears your ring. You wake up screaming. Elspeth doesn't flinch, just hands you another vial. "You're making good time," she says. "That means the worst is still ahead." You don't ask what's in the second vial, you just drink it. This one tastes like dirt and pennies and something sharp that clings to the roof of your mouth like a warning. The aftertaste settles in your bones. You shudder, and Elspeth grunts in approval, like you've passed some unspoken test. Then she returns to her bubbling cauldron of suspicious purple stew and says nothing more. You sit on the edge of the cot for a while, not quite ready to lie back down. Not after that dream. Not after that hand. You can still feel it, cold, wet, dragging itself across the floor of your subconscious like it owns the place. And the ring, your ring, that part sticking in your brain like a splinter. Elspeth hums a little tune as she works. It's tuneless and old, the kind of song that sounds like it existed before notes were invented. You hear her mutter words between verses, but they're not meant for you. Or maybe they are. Hard to tell with witches. Eventually you stand and "I need to go." She doesn't turn around. "You won't find answers out there." You glance at the door. "I'm not looking for answers." This time she laughs. "Then you might survive." You pull your damp cloak back on and it feels heavier than before, like the night has decided to drape itself over your shoulders and see what you'll do next. Your boots squelch against the damp floorboards as you head for the door. Just before you step out, Elspeth calls softly, "Don't look them in the eyes, if they even have eyes tonight." You nod, and the door shuts behind you. Back outside, the village is silent, but not empty. Shadows move along the edges of the buildings, too fast, too fluid to be people. You see them in your peripheral vision, then turn and they vanish. No footsteps, no sound, just movement, Armut. Like the night is stirring. You keep to the main path, boots crunching quietly, hands deep in your sleeves. You pass the well, which now has a crude rope wrapped around it like a warning or a trap. Someone's scratched runes into the stone rim. You don't stop to translate. Your destination tonight isn't a chapel, or a manor, or a tavern. Tonight, you're heading for the gallows, because apparently you hate yourself. The gallows sit at the far end of the village, on a hill that catches the moonlight just wrong. It's a bare, bald patch of earth with a single crooked post and a frayed rope swaying gently in the breeze. Even if you didn't know what it was, you'd feel it. The tension in the soil, the weight in the air. No birds sing here, no animals pass through, and tonight someone is standing beneath it. You don't recognise them at first. A thin figure, cloaked in black, their head tilted slightly, as if listening to something beneath the earth. They don't move. You don't either. Then they speak without turning. Have you come to watch or to be watched? You swallow. Neither. They chuckle softly. Too late. The rope sways harder now, though there's no wind. And then you see them. Figures in the trees, hanging, not moving, not twitching. Just there, dozens, maybe more. You didn't notice them before, but now they glow faintly, pale and grey and wrong. Not ghosts exactly, but echoes. Stains in the shape of people. The man at the gallows finally turns. His face is covered with a hood, but beneath it you can make out nothing. No face, just void. Still, he speaks clearly. The village forgets us, he says, but the rope remembers, so do the roots. You don't reply. You're too busy trying not to look at the hanging shapes, too busy trying to keep your stomach from betraying you. He takes a step toward you, and then you realise there's something around his neck, not a noose, a chain, and dangling from that chain is a key. A big one, iron, rusted, shaped like an old church door. You stare at it. He sees. Ah, he says, you're looking for the door. You nod slowly. Everyone wants the door, he says. No one asks what's on the other side. What is on the other side? He tilts his head. That depends on what you buried. You have no idea what that means. Still, he removes the key and holds it out to you. His hand is bone white, too long. The fingers end in flat grey nails that curl like hooks. You hesitate. If you take it, he says. You can't give it back, not even to me. You take the key. It's cold, heavier here than it should be. And the moment it touches your skin, the hanging figures start to move. Just a little. Just enough. You back away slowly. The man doesn't follow. He simply melts into the shadow beneath the gallows like wax under flame. You don't look back. The key burns in your palm. You don't know what it opens or who. Here's a little-known tidbit from the fringes of medieval lore. Some gallows were said to be built on thin spots in the world. Places where the border between life and death was weak. Execution sites were often reused year after year for generations. The weight of all those deaths, all that grief, sometimes left a scar on the land itself. People reported hearing voices under the dirt, seeing footprints where no one had walked. Animals refused to graze nearby, and sometimes the rope would swing when there was no wind. You believe it now. You head back down the hill, avoiding the figures that now twitch gently in their branches. Their faces remain blank, but their presence is unmistakable. And still in your hand the key grows colder. You don't know why you took it, but you know something else. At some point tonight, something's going to ask you to use it, and when that happens, you're pretty sure the door won't open outward. The village is dead silent as you make your way back down from the gallows hill, the iron key clenched in your hand like it's trying to escape. You keep it tucked deep inside your sleeve now, hidden against your wrist, as if the thing can be fooled into forgetting it exists. It can't. You can feel its shape against your skin and the teeth of it pressed into your palm, too cold, too aware. It doesn't just open something, you're beginning to suspect it calls to whatever's on the other side. The road ahead narrows as you reach the oldest part of the village, where the buildings lean in so close they almost kiss overhead, their upper floors threatening to collapse into each other from sheer age and codependency. This was once the centre of trade, back when the village was new, back when people still believed time moved forward. These days, it's quieter, forgotten. which of course makes it the perfect place for something that shouldn't exist to thrive. You turn into a small courtyard hemmed in by warped timber stalls and a rotted awning still faintly painted with a sigil you can't decipher. It smells like old meat and older secrets. And there, half buried in shadow, sits the black market. Not the kind with furs and spices and morally flexible merchants. No, this one is quieter, smarter. It doesn't call attention to itself. No lanterns, no signs, just people. Standing, sitting, waiting. They speak in whispers. Some don't speak at all. A hunched woman cradles a sack of bones like they're precious heirlooms. A boy sells wooden dolls carved with no eyes and mouths sewn shut. A man behind a warped table has jars full of preserved tongues. You don't ask what kind, he doesn't offer. You move slowly, careful not to bump anyone, careful not to make eye contact for too long. That's the trick here. Pretend it's all normal, like you came to buy some cheese and accidentally wandered into an underworld flea market. A hunched figure gestures for you to approach. You do. She opens a box without a word, inside teeth, dozens of them. All human, some still with bits of gum clinging to the roots. For the speaking, she rasps, breath foul and sticky. If you need to lie to something that remembers the truth. You shake your head, politely, because you get the sense she's not above adding to her collection. The man next to her sells shadows, actual shadows. Bottled, swirling in glass jars, moving even when there's no light. You ask what they're for, he just smiles, for when your own shadow won't follow you anymore. Another stall has nothing on it, just a blank wooden surface. The woman behind it holds out her hand, palm up. You want to trade something you forgot, she says. You keep walking. You shouldn't be here. You know that. This place isn't for tourists. It's not for villagers either. It's for the in-betweeners. The ones who didn't die, but didn't stay alive properly either. The ones who remember things they shouldn't. The ones who have dreams with fingerprints. And yet, you do belong here now, don't you? Because you've seen the hand. Because you drank Elspeth's potion and woke up with screams wedged in your ribs. Because the key in your sleeve is still getting colder. At the far end of the market there's a wall, stone, damp, moss-covered. No stalls, no cellars, just a wooden door. Old, swollen from rain, framed in rusted iron bands, and a slot where a key might fit. You stop. You've seen that door before, not in real life, but in dreams. The chapel dream. The one with the villagers whose mouths were sewn shut and the monks who never blinked. The hand was dragging itself toward this door, and now here it is. You look around. No one's watching you. No one's near the door. The crowd seems to bend away from it naturally, like they can sense what it's for, what it leads to. You reach into your sleeve. The key hums against your skin. You don't put it in the lock. Not yet. Just holding it out feels dangerous enough. The air around you shifts, thickens. The torches at the edge of the market sputter, even though no wind blows. And then you hear it. Behind the door, not footsteps, not breathing, dragging. The same sound from the chapel, from the dream. The hand. You back away. Fast. You don't run. You can't run, not here. Running is a different kind of permission. You return to the crowd, heart hammering, key burning. Someone's watching you. You feel it before you see him. A man in a long red cloak standing at the far corner of the market. His hood is up, face obscured, hands tucked into his sleeves. But he doesn't blink. You know somehow, without seeing his eyes. He's too still. Even the mist refuses to touch him. You blink, and he's gone. You turn to leave. The stalls shift as you move past. Sellers muttering in dialects you've never heard. One holds up a jar of broken fingernails. Another offers you a mask with no mouth. You say nothing, because this place doesn't deal in pleasantries, it deals in deals, and you have nothing left you're willing to lose. Once you've left the square behind, the air lightens, barely. Your lungs stop seizing, your hands unclench. But the market has left something on you. A scent, a mark. You're not sure, only that now when you pass the stone walls and shuttered windows, the shadows seem to bow slightly. Not out of respect, out of recognition. Here's your historical deep cut. While we tend to imagine medieval black markets as just stolen goods and grain smuggling, folklore from several regions hints at darker underground trades, items tied to superstition, relics of plague victims, bones used in folk magic, forgotten names, dreams caught in bottles. These weren't sold in daylight, and they weren't sold to just anyone. You reach the end of the alley and pause. In your hand, the key is no longer cold. It's warm now, sweating, as if whatever waits behind that door knows you walked away, and is trying to decide whether to follow. You head back toward the village centre with the distinct feeling that something's behind you, just far enough to be invisible, just close enough to exist. You don't look. That's the rule now. You've somehow wandered into a world where eye contact is currency, and the minute you acknowledge something, you owe it. So you keep your eyes forward and your pace steady, even as the shadows behind you grow heavier and start to sound a little too much like whispering. But it's not words, not quite, just soft, broken sounds, like syllables that never fully learned how to be language. They wrap around your ears in pulses, your own footsteps muted beneath them. Eventually you reach a small cluster of houses around a common green, where someone's tried to hang bunting between crooked posts like there's ever been a reason to celebrate. The flags are torn now, one of them dipped in something that might have once been wine, or blood, or plum jam that gave up. A dying lantern flickers on a hook nearby, casting the entire scene in a warm, exhausted light. And that's when you see it. A small group of villagers huddled around a fire pit. Not a big fire, just coals, really. Glowing red and low, like the kind of fire you'd make if you wanted heat but not attention. The villagers are quiet, bundled in cloaks and shawls, their faces half hidden in the dark. One of them pokes the coals with a stick. Another passes around a skin of something strong-smelling. They see you. Of course, no one speaks, but they shift slightly, opening the circle by just enough. You step in, because what else are you going to do? You sit on a log and let the warmth creep into your knees, the smell of ash and peat smoke wrapping around your clothes like a blanket made of yesterday's sorrow. No one says a word. Not at first, but then the man nearest you clears his throat. "Well," he says, "you made it this far." You look at him. His face is deeply lined, like bark that learned to speak. His eyes reflect the fire in a way that makes you wonder if they ever close. "I guess so," you reply. Another villager nods. A woman older still, her lips thin, her hands clutching a bundle you think might be a cat, or a loaf of bread with opinions. "They never warn you," she says. "That's the real trick. The danger's never loud." It comes in whispers, drips in like water. You don't even know you're drowning until you've already given your name to something that won't give it back. You blink. Is that metaphorical? She shrugs. Maybe. Maybe not. The third villager, younger than the rest but with that sunken look that says he's seen way too much, stares into the coals. "Have they told you the stories yet?" "What stories?" His eyes don't leave the fire. The ones they don't write down. That's the thing about the Middle Ages. We get so caught up in the wars and plagues and popes and kings that we forget most people lived their whole lives in villages like this. And they didn't have books, they had stories. They passed them down the same way they passed down bread recipes and emotional trauma. Quietly, carefully, and usually around a fire. And tonight, it seems, you're the guest of honour. The old man gestures toward you with a blackened stick. "You ever heard about the demon baby of Briar Hollow?" "I'm sorry, what?" he grins. "Born under a blood moon. Came out with teeth and cursed the midwife with a look. Whole village had boils for 3 years. Baby grew up with no shadow and eyes that blinked sideways. Disappeared into the forest at age 5. They say he comes back every solstice and eats sheep. Sometimes people, if the sheep are scrawny." You try to nod politely, as if that's the kind of bedtime story you're used to. The woman adds, "There was a woman here once who had dreams so vivid, her neighbours started experiencing them. Whole streets spent a week sleepwalking into the woods. One walked straight into the river, didn't drown, just kept walking." You glance around. Everyone's still deadly calm, like they're reading off a grocery list. The young man murmurs, "My uncle saw the sky tear open once, just above the mill. Said he saw something looking through, like a face made of fog. He never went near the fields again. We had to bury him in salt." You let that hang there for a while. Then quietly, almost without thinking, you say, "I've seen the hand." The fire pops. Someone shifts. The woman leans forward. "Which hand?" "The one in the glass box, in the crypt, under the chapel." They all look at each other. The old man spits into the fire. "Well then," he says, "you've gone and done it now. There's no anger, no blame, just recognition. Like you stepped on a line you didn't know was there, and now the rest of your life is going to be an echo of that mistake. You have to be careful now," the younger man says. "You've been marked." "By the monks, and you ask?" "No," the woman says softly. "By it. You open your mouth to ask what that means, but something thumps loudly behind you. All of you freeze. Another thump, closer, heavier. You turn around, slowly. There's a figure standing just at the edge of the firelight. Barefoot, thin, dressed in rags soaked dark with something. You can't see the face, but the way it stands, tilted, twitching slightly, it's not natural. Then it says your name, not like a friend, not like a stranger, like a reminder. The villagers don't move, the fire doesn't flicker, but everything in your body tenses like a pulled bowstring. "Don't speak to it," the woman hisses. "Don't answer." You don't. The figure tilts its head, then twitches again, then it drops something. A small bundle and vanishes. You don't want to pick it up, of course you don't, but you do. Wrapped in damp cloth is a doll, your doll, or at least a doll that looks like you. Its mouth is stitched shut, and on its chest, written in ash, is the word soon. You don't realise your hands are shaking until you nearly drop the doll. The stitched mouth, the word scrawled across its chest, it all pulses with the kind of quiet threat that doesn't need to scream. You look up, hoping for some kind of comfort from the villagers who, up until 5 seconds ago, were dropping ghost baby stories like bedtime fables. But they're gone. All of them. The old man, the catloaf lady, even the younger one with the sunken eyes. Not a single trace left. Not so much as a dent in the soil where the logs were. The fire. Out. Cold. Like it never burned. You're alone. Of course you are. You tuck the doll into your cloak because for some reason not taking it feels worse, and stand in the middle of the green, spinning slowly to reorient yourself. The village looks unfamiliar again. The rooftops slouch lower than they should. The lanterns that once flickered gently have been snuffed. The windows are shuttered tighter now and the silence is different. Heavier. Like the world's holding its breath, waiting to see what you'll do next. So you head toward the one place you haven't tried yet. The Abbey. Again, because clearly the first visit wasn't enough. You follow a winding path that leads past the granary and the mill, both quiet as crypts. The air's cooler now and the sky overhead has changed. The moon, previously a thin crescent, has vanished entirely. Not hidden, gone. And with it, the stars. What's left is a ceiling of pure dark, smooth, endless, and somehow closer than it should be. By the time you reach the Abbey's outer wall, your breath's fogging in the air like it's midwinter. Your boots crunch against frost-coated stones, your fingers numbing even inside your sleeves. And yet the frost only extends to the base of the Abbey. The building itself seems untouched, like it's holding its own season. The gate is open. No monks at the entrance this time. No torches, no chanting, just silence. You step inside, and the stillness is wrong. It's not absence, it's expectation. Inside the chapel, the rows of pews are gone. The altar? Gone. The stone floor is bare, carved with circles and lines in chalk and something darker. At the centre, where the altar once stood, is a massive bowl, bronze, blackened, wide enough to bathe in. Something steams inside it. Not violently, just faintly. The way a mouth might steam if it were still breathing in cold air. And then you see them, the monks, not standing, not kneeling, lying, arranged in a perfect ring around the basin, robes neat, hands folded, hoods still drawn. They look peaceful, like statues on tombs, except for the fact that they're all missing their right hands. All of them. And you don't have to ask where the hands went, because you already met one. You don't move. You barely breathe. Then behind you, footsteps. You spin. It's not a monk. It's a nun. A single woman in dark robes, hood down. Her hair is streaked silver and black. Her face worn but focused. Her eyes glow faintly in the dim, like coals before the cacti. They catch fire. "You brought it," she says, not even bothering to ask. You nod. "The doll?" She asks again, another nod. She sighs, not relief, not dread, just inevitability. Then it's time. She beckons you forward. You follow, partly because you trust her voice, and partly because the door behind you has closed again, and you're officially all in on whatever nightmare this is. She leads you past the bowl, past the ring of monks, and through a narrow hallway that twists like intestines through the abbey. Candles light themselves as you pass. That's not a metaphor. You watch each one flare to life just as you step beside it. At the end of the hall, a door. Not wood, not stone, metal, old, blackened, with a keyhole. Of course, you pull out the key. The nun doesn't stop you. She steps aside as you insert it, her hands folded neatly in front of her. The key slides in like it was waiting for you. Like the lock recognizes you. You pause, hand resting on the handle. "Are you sure about this?" you ask. She tilts her head. No one ever is. You turn the key. The door opens with a hiss, not a creak. A hiss, like a breath released after centuries of being held. What lies beyond isn't a room, it's a stairwell, spiralling downward. Of course you descend. The air changes immediately, damp, thick, heavy with the scent of earth and something sharp like iron and burned sugar. The walls are narrow, slick with moisture, carved with runes and scratches that your brain refuses to interpret. You pass a rat on the way down. It stares at you, doesn't move. Its eyes are too human. Eventually you reach the bottom. A chamber, round, stone, lit by torches that burn without smoke. In the centre stands a pedestal, and on that pedestal, the hand. Not in a box this time, just sitting there. Palm up, fingers slightly curled, waiting. You don't step forward, the nun does. "This is where it began," she says softly. "This hand once belonged to a man who saw too much, heard the rot moving beneath the village. He tried to warn the people. He screamed the truth until his voice bled. What happened? They silenced him, cut off his hand so he could write no more." You glance at the runes. "He wrote anyway?" She nods. "With blood." The hand twitches. You both step back, then the hand stands. Not like it's crawling, not like it's struggling. It rises, perfectly balanced on its fingertips like a spider, and from its severed wrist something emerges. A tendril of smoke, black, pulsing, intelligent. The nun raises a vial from her sleeve, just like Elspeth's, and hurls it at the hand. It explodes into light. The hand shrieks, not in sound, in your head, and then it leaps. At you. You catch it by instinct. Bad idea. Its fingers wrap around your wrist with the pressure of a vice. You scream. Your vision goes white, then red. You see the village, burning, rotting. You see the monks crawling backward into the earth like worms. You see the villagers, mouths sewn, dolls burning, the gallows swinging in reverse. You see yourself, not now, from before, planting something in the soil, burying a box. You jolt back into the chamber. The hand is gone, so's the nun. You're alone, and something is moving behind the walls, scratching, digging, waking. You don't scream, not because you're brave or stoic or emotionally stable. No, that ship sailed somewhere between the haunted bathhouse and the gallows ghost. You don't scream because your body is frozen. Your jaw locked, your breath shallow. There's a buzzing in your ears, like your blood's trying to drown out whatever's coming through the walls. Scratch, pause, drag, scratch. You turn in slow, aching increments, afraid of what you might see or not see. Darkness stretches in every direction. The torches that once burned so confidently in this underground chamber are now sputtering out one by one, leaving behind a chill that creeps over your skin like mildew. You don't know what happened to the nun. She was there. She threw the vial, she told you the story, and then nothing. Gone like smoke, like memory. And the hand had chosen you, gripped your wrist like it recognized its own. That scar you'd forgotten about, tiny, pale, a line from a childhood fall, now pulses faintly under your skin, as if the hand left something behind. Another scratch, closer now, and then a voice, low, whispering. You remember where you buried it? You do. Not clearly, but in the way a cell or a melody drags up something old and sour from the cellar of your mind. A field, just outside the village walls. A hill with a tree that was struck by lightning. You didn't plant a seed. You buried a box. Your hands move before your thoughts do, patting down your cloak, checking your belt. The key is still there, useless now, unless it opens something else. And the doll, limp in your pocket, feels heavier than it should. You pull it out. The mouth is no longer stitched. The smile is new. You drop it. No bounce, no sound. It just vanishes into the earth like it was never there. You run. Up the spiral stairs, heart jackhammering, hands scrabbling against slick stone. The scratching grows louder, echoing through the tight space behind you. You feel movement, wind, breath, presence, and a wet hiss, like a mouth just learning how to form words. You burst through the door at the top, expecting to find the empty hallway of the Abbey again, but it's not the Abbey. It's the forest. Midnight woods, thick with fog, trees leaning like eavesdroppers. Your lungs burn as you stumble forward, leaves crunching underfoot. A crow caws above you just once, then goes silent. That's never a good sign. You don't remember how you got here, but that seems to be a running theme tonight. Somewhere ahead, moonlight breaks through the branches, not white but sickly yellow, like a lantern's oil burned too long. You follow it. The path leads to a clearing, and at the centre, a body. You approach slowly, boots sinking into soft moss. The figure lies on its side, back to you, a cloak wrapped tightly around its frame. You can't see the face. The hand, that hand, sticks out, curled, familiar. You reach out, roll the body over. It's you, not dead, but sleeping, dreaming. Your mouth moves silently, as if reciting a prayer. Your eyes twitch beneath the lids. The scar on your wrist pulses, and just behind your sleeping self something rises from the soil. A head, then shoulders, then arms. It looks like a man, but wrong, his proportions off. His face familiar, the gallows man, the hooded monk, the red-cloaked figure from the market, all mashed into one shifting, flickering thing. It reaches toward the sleeping version of you, and then its fingers go inside. Not violently, delicately, as if picking a lock. You lurch forward, yelling, cursing, trying to stop it, but the forest slows you. The air thickens. Your voice doesn't carry. Every step takes more effort, like walking through syrup made of dread. When you finally reach them, they're gone. No sleeping body, no figure. Just a hole, dug in the moss. At the bottom, a wooden box, the one you buried. You kneel beside it. You don't want to touch it, but you do. You open it. Inside is a scrap of parchment. A single line written in rust-coloured ink. You knew this would happen. There's also a ring. Your ring? The one from the hand. You stare at it, then glance at your own hand. The scar pulses again. It almost hurts now. You slip the ring onto your finger. It fits. Perfectly. The trees around you shiver. Not in wind, there is no wind, but in recognition. You hear something between branches, a sound that feels like teeth grinding through wood. You don't wait to find out what's chasing you now. You run again, deeper into the woods, until the path bends and breaks, and suddenly you're not in a forest anymore. You're in the village square, only it's not quite the same. The houses are taller, crooked, blackened with soot. The windows are bricked shut. The well is gone. The cobblestones bleed under your feet, and hanging in the air, like a bell still ringing after the toll, is that voice again. You knew. You spin around. There, across the square, is another version of you, not sleeping. Standing, pale, hollow-eyed, wearing the red cloak. You step back. They raise a hand, your hand, and point. Behind you, the villagers are gathering, all of them. But they don't look right. Their mouths hang open, their eyes stitched shut. They don't speak, but they hum. That same melody Elspeth sang in her cottage. The one that had no tune. The one from before notes existed. And then you see what's in their hands. Dolls. Dozens of them. Each one with a stitched mouth. Each one wearing your face. They raise them in unison and begin to unstitch. You can't move, not because something's holding you, not physically, but because whatever this is, whatever you've stepped into, no longer obeys the rules of muscles and bones. The stitched dolls lift in perfect synchrony, hands trembling just slightly, like they're resisting the pull of invisible strings. And as the threads come loose, one by one, you feel it. A slicing, searing tug across your own lips. Not pain exactly, but the memory of pain. Like your body knows it's supposed to hurt. The figures, those villagers that aren't villagers anymore, don't speak. They don't blink. They just watch you with those blank, sewn-up faces, humming like a funeral procession, trying not to admit the coffin's still breathing. The red-cloaked version of you steps closer. Same face and same eyes, but older, tired. Not with age, but with knowledge. That kind of exhaustion you only get when you've seen something so horrible, so impossibly ancient, that it breaks the concept of rest. This version of you doesn't smile, doesn't threaten, just nods, solemn and slow as if to say, there. Now you understand. You take a shaky breath. The ring on your finger pulses. The scar burns. Somewhere in your mouth you taste copper. Then the ground shifts. Not dramatically, not an earthquake, just a subtle ripple, like something enormous just rolled over beneath the earth, stretching in its sleep. Cracks form in the cobblestones. Not from force, from age, like the village is decomposing in real time. A low sound rises from beneath your feet. It isn't human, it isn't alive. It's the sound of roots tearing through coffins, the sound of worms waking up with teeth. And then, light. Not sunlight, starlight. Except there are no stars in the sky. There haven't been for hours, but here they come anyway, bursting from the soil like silver seeds, rising into the air around you. Tiny flickers, each one pulsing with impossible rhythm, like hearts that never learned how to beat in sync. They orbit you, the red-cloaked you and the dolls, casting the square in a kind of glowing unreality. You look up and realise the sky is cracking. Yes, cracking. Thin white lines spiderweb across the heavens like veins in broken porcelain. Not fast, not sudden, but growing, reaching. Every second more of the void above fractures, and through the cracks you glimpse something else. Another sky. Not ours. The stars there pulse in strange patterns. The constellations are wrong, shapes that resemble runes and symbols you've seen carved into bone, burned into the abbey walls, scratched into that little vial Elspeth gave you. They move, not twinkle, move, shifting like eyes trying to refocus, like they're watching you. You look down again, because honestly, screw the sky. The villagers have stopped humming. The dolls are now fully unstitched, their mouths slack. Their faces are still yours, some grinning, some crying. One, near the front, has no face at all, just smooth cloth, like a memory you're trying not to remember. And then one of them speaks. Open it. The red-cloaked you nods. You understand immediately. The key. Your hand moves on its own, it reaches inside your cloak and pulls the key from its hidden place. It still pulses with warmth. No longer cold, now hot, alive, like a heartbeat not your own. You hold it up. Open what, you ask, voice barely audible over the hum building in your skull. The doll speaks again. The gate. The villagers part. Behind them, where the well used to be, there's now a door. Just standing there, unsupported, freestanding in the centre of the square. No hinges, no frame, just a slab of wood and metal bound in twisted iron, leaning forward like it's listening. The key fits perfectly, of course. You hesitate. The red-cloaked you says nothing. The villagers wait. And you know exactly what this means. You've seen what comes through. The hand, the voices, the way the dreams become maps. This door doesn't lead out, it leads deeper. Into something older, something that was never supposed to be found again. But here's the kicker. You've already opened it once, you just don't remember doing it, yet. So you turn the key. The lock clicks. The sky above you shatters, light floods the square. But not white, not gold, it's blue. Cold, deep, the colour of oceans that exist under miles of ice. The kind of blue that doesn't reflect, doesn't forgive, just absorbs, and the door swings open. No sound, no breeze, just void. Inside is not darkness. Inside is depth. You see shapes, shifting, crawling. One of them turns toward the open frame and moves forward slowly, dragging something behind it that drips and pulses like living tar. The villagers begin to chant again, words you still don't understand, but this time they're for you, not warnings, invitations. The red-cloaked you raises a hand and gestures forward. You brought it here, they say. Now finish it. I don't even know what it is, you reply, voice thin. It's you. It always was. The light inside the door flickers, and now you see it clearly. At the centre of whatever lies beyond, there's a throne. Made of roots, of bone, of hands, and seated there is you, smiling, crowned. You stumble back. The dolls begin to walk toward the door, stepping through one by one, joining the procession beyond. The villagers follow, but the red-cloaked version of you doesn't move. They look at you with those tired, knowing eyes. You can still close it, they say, but you won't. They hand you the doll again. Its mouth is stitched again. Tighter now. And in its chest is the key. The key you just used. You blink. The door is gone. So is the village. You're standing in a field. Alone. Empty. Morning mist rising through the grass. The sun just starting to crest the hill. Birds are chirping. You feel normal. Until you look down. In your hand, the doll. No mouth. In your wrist, the scar. still burning. Behind you, footsteps, not yours. You turn around slowly, bracing yourself for whatever form of horror the morning might hold. Your breath catches, half expecting the hand again, or worse, another version of you, one with a crown made of teeth and that terrible too-knowing look. But the figure behind you isn't cloaked. It isn't stitched. It isn't shadowy or crawling or possessed by eldritch truths. It's a monk. Plain brown robe, rope belt, face uncovered, but his expression tells you everything. His eyes, pale and glassy, are fixed right on you, but they don't see you. They look past you, through you, like you're the window and not the view. The others are waking, he says. It's begun. You don't answer, because how do you respond to that? Thanks for the update, Brother Cryptic. You stare at him, trying to piece together whether he's real or some fragment of the dreaming you just tore your way out of. He raises a hand, 5 fingers, thank the gods, and gestures toward a path that wasn't there a second ago. It winds between rows of mist-shrouded trees, dew-coated and quiet. Peaceful. But you've been tricked by peaceful before. The library, the monk says. You'll find the record there. The record of what? He looks at the doll still clutched in your hand. Of you. Right. Of course. How could this possibly get weirder? You don't ask more questions, you just follow. The path crunches beneath your boots, frost giving way to mud, and the trees part slowly overhead like arms stretching after too many years, folded tight. Crows sit silently on the branches, unmoving, watching. You half expect one of them to speak in a human voice. One of them might. The monk doesn't speak again, just walks ahead of you, hands clasped behind his back as if this is all routine. Maybe for him it is. Maybe guiding lost souls who accidentally cracked reality wide open is just another Tuesday. Eventually, the trees open to reveal a stone building, tall, narrow, hidden, beneath creeping ivy and age. It's beautiful in the way abandoned places often are. Solemn, purposeful, cracked by time but still standing. The wooden door creaks open before you touch it, naturally. The monk gestures for you to enter. You step into the monastery library. The air inside smells of parchment and wax, ink and dust, and something just slightly metallic, like dried blood under old floorboards. The ceiling arches overhead like the ribs of some great beast, and books line the walls from floor to ceiling. Not bound in leather, wrapped, in fabric, some in linen, some in burlap. One, disturbingly, in what looks like stitched together faces. You try not to look at that one too long. Tables rest in the centre of the room, scrolls unfurled, quills still wet in ink pots. No one's here, but the room hums with presence. The candles burn steadily. And you notice none of them drip. Their flames are too still, too quiet. The monk points toward a spiral staircase. Up. You climb. The steps are narrow, winding higher than they should. The air tightens with every level, the scent of paper growing stronger, more acidic, like it's begun to rot from knowing too much. At the top, a landing, a single heavy door, and no knob, just a slot. Of course. You reach for the doll, the key is back in its chest. You don't remember putting it there. You don't remember anything clearly anymore. Just fragments, bells, bones. The doll smiles now, faintly. You slide the key into the door and turn. It clicks. The door opens into a room unlike the rest of the monastery. This one's circular, lined with mirrors. Dozens of them. Not glass, but polished metal. Tarnished and warped so each reflection is slightly off. In one you're taller, in another you have no eyes. In another you're still wearing the red cloak. One mirror is empty. Just emptiness where your reflection should be. And in the centre of the room, a pedestal. On it sits a single book. No title. You approach slowly, the mirrors twitching in your periphery. You can't be sure, but it feels like they move just after you pass them. As if the reflections inside are adjusting, shifting, trying to decide which version of you they want to show. The book is bound in smooth black leather. No stitching, no clasp, no lock. It opens easily when you touch it. Inside, blank pages. You flip. More blank pages. Then suddenly, text. It starts without preamble. They always come back. You turn the page. Every 30 years, the village forgets. The earth does not. The hand waits. The door remains. The one who wakes it always leaves something behind. You keep reading. The ink darkens. The language changes. And then it starts to use your name. You see memories you haven't remembered yet. Moments from tonight, from dreams, from times you swore were fiction. A line appears mid-page as you watch. The version who resisted lasted longest. She locked the door, but forgot to bury the key deep enough. You close the book, your hands are shaking again. The monk is behind you, somehow. You were always going to come here, he says softly, but you weren't always going to open the door. So why did I? He shrugs. Some versions don't. Some are devoured. Some sit on the throne. Which am I? He doesn't answer. You turn to leave. The mirrors shift. Every version of you now turns at once, facing forward, their mouths open, not in speech, in song. That same tuneless hum. You bolt down the stairs, through the library, past the monk, back into the woods. This time the path doesn't follow the same curve, it stretches longer. The trees taller. You run anyway, breath hitching, boots slip-upping in mud that now smells like rust. And eventually, mercifully, you see the edge of the village. But it's wrong again. It's quiet. Too quiet. No monks, no fire, no market, just fog. Then you hear the bells. They are not ringing, they are laughing. You don't mean to fall, but the fog is thicker than it should be. Damp, suffocating, heavy as wet wool. Your foot catches on something, stone maybe, or the corner of a thought, and you hit the ground hard enough to bite your tongue. The metallic taste floods your mouth, and for a moment you just lie there, cheek pressed against cold earth, listening. Not for help, for laughter. Because that's what the bells are doing. No rhythm, no solemnity, just wild, irregular bursts of noise like wind chimes hung in a madhouse, or children ringing handbells in the exact wrong key. You sit up slowly. The village is still around you. Technically. The houses are here, yes, but they're different. Crooked where they were once merely bent, taller. Their windows wider now, filled with dark panes that seem to shimmer like oil slicks. You swear the wood is breathing. The smoke curling from a nearby chimney smells like burnt hair. There's no one outside, no sound of movement. Just the bells cackling above you from the chapel's tower, where you're certain no one should be. And then, drip. Something hits your shoulder. You flinch, reach up, wet. You look up. It's not rain, the sky is dripping. Not water either. Something thicker, darker. You catch a bit on your fingertip. It clings like syrup, shimmers like ink, and it smells faintly of the library. Paper. Blood. Forgotten memories. A door slams somewhere behind you and you jump. You're not alone. Of course you're not. The fog shifts. Shapes appear. Tall, thin, silent. They move like sleepwalkers, drifting across the green with slow, deliberate steps. You recognise one of them. The woman from the bathhouse. The one who warned you not to talk to things with your name. Now her mouth is gone. Literally. Just smooth skin where her lips once were. Another is the old man from the gallows hill, dragging a broken stool behind him like a forgotten crime. His neck twists unnaturally, his hand still stained with the same ash you saw on the doll's chest. They don't look at you, they don't have to, because something else is. At the centre of the village green now stands a tree. You're sure it wasn't there before. It's tall, gnarled, leafless, its bark so dark it reflects no light, no roots, no visible connection to the earth at all, just rising from the stones like it broke through. At its base something swings, a single noose, empty, for now, and beneath the noose, in the roots curling outward like fingers, is a small square hole. A slot, just the size for one item. A doll, or a hand moves before your brain catches up. It reaches into your cloak and pulls it out, still smiling, still warm. You step forward through fog and memory. The bells scream laughter overhead. You kneel. Place the doll into the hollow. It fits. A soft click. A sigh from the tree. Then silence. Real silence. No bells, no wind. The air stills, and even the fog seems to pause mid-swirl. And then, a voice. Not behind you. Inside you. You remember. You try to stand, but your legs have turned to lead. Your heart slams in your chest. You blink, and the village is gone again. This time you're underground, somewhere deep. Cold, wet, a cavern of stone and silence, and at the centre, a door. The door, still upright, still waiting, but now it's breathing. Every inhale makes the stone around it groan. Every exhale fills the room with mist. The keyhole glows faintly, even though you know the key is gone. Or is it? Your fingers brush your wrist. The ring. You raise your hand and the door responds. It opens, no key, no effort, just recognition. Beyond it, not light, not dark, a mirror, but not the kind you can see through. This one pulls, you step forward, not because you want to, but because every version of you that came before already did. You're just catching up. You fall forward, through yourself, through memory, through dirt and time, and land in a room, a child's room, your child's room, only not exactly. The toys are wrong, the wallpaper pulses, there are no windows, and on the bed, curled in a ball, sobbing into their knees, is a child who looks exactly like you did. They lift their head and say, "I didn't mean to bury it." Their face is streaked with tears and ink. Their hands are bandaged. They point to the floor. You look. There under the bed is a box, the same one, the first one. You reach for it and suddenly the child is gone. So is the room. You're back in the village, standing beneath the tree. The noose swings, now filled. Not with a body, with a name. Yours. You stare up at it, heart thrumming. Somewhere deep inside, something cracks. The villagers are back now. All of them. But now their mouths are wide open, stitched no longer, and they're all screaming, but not in fear, in relief. Like you just completed something they've waited centuries for. Then they fall, one by one, dropping like marionettes whose strings were cut. You stand alone beneath the tree, the ring glows, the air buzzes, and at your feet, the doll. Now with its eyes closed, now with its hands crossed, now with a crown. And from the chapel tower one final bell chimes. A single note, and then silence. Real silence. The kind that comes after a question is answered. And you realise, this village doesn't need saving. It needed a witness. It needed you. You don't know how long you stand there watching the village that should have collapsed years ago breathe its last sigh. The fog has thinned to a fine mist, and everything smells of old rain and wood smoke and iron, like the aftermath of something that didn't burn but should have. The bodies, if you can call them that, lie where they fell, still dressed in the habits and cloaks of lives that might have once been real, or borrowed, or stitched together. The noose sways gently in the breeze, and that cursed crown, that tiny woven loop now resting on the doll's head, glints in the broken sunlight. It's made from roots, or hair, or something older that learned to look like both. And the doll, well, it looks peaceful, that's the worst part. Like it got what it wanted, like the story finally ended in the shape it was always meant to. You should run, or scream, or dig a deep hole and bury yourself beside the hand in the box, and every version of yourself that came before this one. But instead, you just breathe. Because for the first time since the bells rang out their first guttural laugh, you feel clarity, not peace, just understanding. And understanding in this place is its own kind of curse. You kneel beside the doll again. Its mouth is stitched once more, the red thread so fine you can't see where it starts or ends. You don't touch it. This feels like one of those fairy tales where contact equals doom. Or worse, continuation. You rise slowly. The village doesn't move. Not the buildings, not the trees, not even the shadows. You're the only thing here still shifting. Still real. That's a dangerous position to be in. Across the square, the chapel doors are wide open again. Not inviting, not threatening. Just open. Like a mouth that's forgotten it should close. You walk toward it because that's your role now. Seeker. Rememberer. Chronicler of the chaos. The witness who carries the rot in their blood. Inside, the pews are upright again. The altar's been restored. The monks, gone. Dust covers every surface and spiderwebs lace the ceiling like forgotten lace. But on the altar, laid out like an offering, is the book. The same one from the mirrored library. Only this time it's open. And it's writing itself. You approach carefully, eyes scanning the pages as they blacken with fresh ink, line after line appearing before you, like a confession, scrawled in real time. She opened the door. He wore the ring. They remembered. You turn the page. There, in crisp script, you, and below it, you brought it back, as you always do. You slam the book shut. It pulses under your palm, warm and humming, not like a heart, like a hive, full of things that are waiting. You step back. The floor creaks under your boots, but not in wood, in bone. You don't look down. You know what you'll see. You've walked on these bones before in dreams and in memory. This place was never sacred. It was bait. Outside, the light has shifted again. Not quite dusk, not quite dawn, that uncanny in between. The village doesn't feel like it's sleeping anymore. It feels like it's watching. You walk the familiar route, through the old market square, past the shuttered bathhouse, along the lane where the goats used to loiter. There's no one here now, just stillness. And that oppressive quiet, the kind that presses against your ears like altitude, like something's wrong with the air. You pass the well. The stone is cracked now. A single thread of water trickles down one side, black and sluggish. You lean over the edge, peer into the depths. Far below you see your own face, but it blinks, not yours, not anymore. You step away quickly, keep moving. The gallows are still standing, the rope is still swinging. The hill feels steeper this time, like the earth's resisting your ascent. But you push forward, boots slipping in loose dirt and damp grass until you reach the top. And there he is, again, the man in red, still hooded, still faceless, still waiting. But this time he speaks first. "You've done well," he says. "This time." You don't ask what that means. "What was it?" you ask instead. "What was I really opening?" He tilts his head. "Yourself. You should have expected that." You clench your fists. "So all this, Elspeth, the hand, the dreams, none of it was real." "Oh, it was all real." "That's the problem." He gestures toward the rope. "You're not the first, you won't be the last." "And what happens now?" he shrugs. "That depends. Do you want to forget?" "Oh, sure," he nods, pleased. "Then you'll carry it." He hands you something. A bell, small, iron tarnished. You take it. It's heavier than it looks, cold, silent. "Ring it when you're ready," he says. "And only when you're ready." And then what? Then it starts again. He disappears. You stand alone at the gallows, holding a bell that doesn't ring, in a village that doesn't live, after a night that doesn't end, and you remember everything. That the door wasn't meant to be opened, but it was meant to be found. That the hand was yours, always. That the rot isn't something you fight, it's something you inherit. You walk back down the hill, bell in hand, footsteps echoing over ground that remembers more than it should. Behind you, the rope finally stops swinging. You walk until the trees replace houses and the wind starts whispering again. Softer now, but still with that sly undertone like it knows the ending and can't wait to see if you figure it out before it's too late. The path ahead winds through a thinning wood where the mist hangs low and the birds have stopped pretending this is a place for songs. Your boots drag, not because you're tired, though you are, but because you know, somehow, somewhere just ahead, this ends, or maybe begins. At this point, the line between the two is so thoroughly blurred it's hard to tell whether you're being born or buried. The bell in your pocket feels heavier with each step. It doesn't rattle or ring, it just sits there like an idea you don't want to have, growing heavier every time you try to pretend it isn't there. Eventually, the woods open to a field, the same one. You recognise the slope of it, the way the grass sways wrong, as if there's something breathing just beneath the surface. The lightning-struck tree stands in the distance, splintered, leaning, charred through the centre like a heart that got tired of being hopeful. You've seen this place in dreams, in memories, in stories, and apparently in your own past. Because there's a shallow patch of disturbed earth here. Not fresh, but not forgotten either. You kneel beside it, brush away the loose soil, and there it is, the box, the first one, or the last, depending on your perspective. You open it slowly. Inside is your name, etched on a slip of bone, no paper, no parchment, just smooth ivory carved deep and stained red at the edges. You lift it out with trembling fingers. It pulses once, warmth blooming through your palm, then goes still. There's a sound behind you. You turn. She's there. Elspeth. Older now. Or maybe just more tired. Her robe hangs heavier. Her eyes are the same, though, sharp, full of things no one should have to carry alone. "You remembered," she says. You nod. She kneels beside you, takes the bone from your hand and wraps it in cloth. "You've made it farther than most," she says. "Most?" She gives you a look. "You really think you were the first one to stumble through the crypt and wake the rot?" "I hoped." She laughs. It's not a cruel sound, just sad. There's always someone. Always will be. The land pulls them, the rot calls them. The village shapes around them. "So it's all just some kind of loop." She shakes her head. "No, loops go nowhere. This thing learns. Every time it wakes, it gets a little stronger, a little hungrier." You glance back toward the village. though you can't see it from here. Still, you feel it, settled just behind the hills like a blister. Then why not burn it down? She looks at you like a mother trying not to snap. You think no one's tried. Fire doesn't catch there. Salt dissolves. Iron rusts overnight. The rot feeds on resistance. So what do? She places the bone back into the box, closes it, and buries it again with precise, practiced movements. We wait, she says. We warn. We delay the next door from opening. Sometimes it's years, sometimes decades, but eventually it always finds a crack. You sit beside her for a while, watching the wind move over the hills. You want to ask 100 questions, but your voice is tired, your thoughts frayed. So you sit in silence, until Elspeth speaks again. You've marked yourself, she says. The ring, the bell, the doll. These aren't just trinkets, they're promises. Promises to who? She looks at you. To it. You swallow, the air feels heavier now, the grass has stopped moving. Even the tree seems to lean in closer. You'll start forgetting soon, she says. That's part of the gift. Gift? Survival. You nod, but it doesn't feel like agreement, just exhaustion. Elspeth stands and brushes off her knees. You'll leave here eventually, she says. Walk back into a world that makes sense, moods that go where they should, people who don't carry their names in bone. And then, she pauses, looks up at the sky, now overcast again, grey and bloated with the weight of something unshed. Then, she says, you'll hear the bell. Your hand drifts to your pocket, still there, still heavy. You'll want to ring it, she says, voice low, because you'll think it's just a bell, just an old memory, just a sound. It's not, her gaze sharpens. It's a summons. A chill rolls through you, deep and slow. She walks away after that. No goodbye, no warning, just vanishes into the tall grass like a thought slipping out of reach. You sit there a while longer, the box buried again, the bone tucked away, the bell quiet. Eventually you rise. The path back to the village is gone now, nothing but rolling hills and scrubland. Good. You head the other way, away from the fog, away from the rot, towards something that resembles a road. You walk until your boots stop squelching, until the air smells like damp earth instead of old blood, until the crows no longer track your movement from tree to tree. You find a road, a real one, cobblestone, worn but solid. It leads toward distant smoke, a town. You breathe, keep walking, but you don't feel lighter. You feel leashed. The bell shifts in your pocket, not ringing, not yet, but ready, always ready. The town comes into view just as the sun begins to die behind the hills, not set, die. The light fades in pieces, like something is chewing at the edges of it, turning day into dusk with teeth. You can see smoke rising from chimneys, windows glowing soft gold, and the faint sound of people who haven't yet earned the 1,000-yard stare you now carry in your bones. It's jarring, this normalcy. Laughter, a market stall being closed, the clatter of hooves on cobblestones, life happening like nothing's rotting just one village over. You walk in slow, boots caked in the kind of mud that doesn't wash off. A child stares up at you as you pass, wide-eyed, chewing on the corner of a cloth doll. You nearly ask if its mouth is stitched shut, but it's not. The doll's just a doll, the kid's just a win, and the air doesn't taste like secrets. For the first time in what feels like years, you pass people who see you. No humming, no identical faces, just brief passing nods. Suspicion, sure, but not the knowing kind. You're a traveller. A stranger. Nothing more. You find an inn. Simple. 2 stories. A swinging sign that reads the Yellow Horn. It's a dumb name. You love it. You step inside and nearly collapse from the sheer density of normal. The smell of stew, cheap ale, sweat, smoke, blessedly mundane. You blink like someone surfacing from a dream that was clawing too close to memory. The innkeeper is wiping down the bar with a rag that's doing more smearing than cleaning. He looks up, grunts. Room? You nod. He glances at your boots, your cloak, your eyes. Been on the road a while, have you? You give a small, dry smile. You could say that. He takes a key from a pegboard behind him and slides it across the counter. Upstairs, second on the left, locks from the inside. You take the key. It's warm, real, not humming, not whispering, not pulsing with ancient intent. You exhale for what feels like the first time in days. You don't eat. You can't. Your stomach doesn't trust you yet. You don't speak to anyone else. You climb the stairs, lock the door behind you, and collapse onto the bed without even pulling off your boots. You stare at the ceiling and wait for the dreams. They come quickly, but not in the way they used to. No crypts, no monks, no stitched mouths, just a door floating in the dark, closed, and a sound. Tap, 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 like fingernails on wood. You wake with a jolt, drenched in sweat. The room is quiet. The world for now hasn't ended, but your pulse is erratic. Your hand shoots to your pocket. The bell is still there, but now it's warm. Not hot, not glowing, just warm. You sit up slowly, rub your face. You need air. Outside, the streets are calmer. Lanterns light the corners. A few people wander home from the tavern, someone's singing off key. It's not ominous, it's just bad. You walk for a bit, letting your legs remember what it's like to walk without being stalked by fog or cryptic figures. You pass a shop selling books. You stop. The window displays leather-bound volumes, scrolls, an old map of the kingdom curling at the edges. One book in particular catches your eye. No title on the spine, just a smooth black cover. It's not the book, you know that. But still, you can't help it. You go inside. The shopkeeper is asleep, seated in a chair near the hearth, mouth open, soft snoring echoing through the aisles. You browse quietly, hands trailing across spines and pages. Old histories, travelogues, recipes written in runes. No rot, no warnings. But then, in a dusty corner near the back, you find it. A volume titled The Hollow Village. No author listed. You open it. The pages are yellowed, brittle, ink faded. It's written like a folk tale, a village where the night never ends, where the dead don't rest, where the doors open the wrong way. You flip ahead. The main character, your name, you freeze. It can't be. You scan the page, looking for any explanation, any sign that this is some mass-printed fairy tale. But the details, specific details, match everything. The chapel, the gallows, the ring, the bone with your name carved into it. You shut the book and back away, but not before you notice a final page stuck near the back. You peel it open. The bell rings once, then all is forgotten. You leave the shop without the book. Outside, the air is colder now. A wind cuts through the alley, and you hear a chime. You freeze. It wasn't the bell in your pocket. It came from deeper in the town. Another chime, then another. Not laughter this time, calling. You run toward it, because what else can you do? You pass a window. A reflection flickers in the glass. Not yours. You spin. The street is empty. Then you see it. In the centre of town, a new structure. A door, standing on its own, not built, just there, freestanding, waiting. And someone stands in front of it. Not you, but close enough. They turn, same face, same eyes. They smile and hold up a bell. They ring it. Once, the town disappears. You blink. You're in your bed again. It's morning. The bell is gone. But the ring is still on your finger, and in your chest, the memory of a door you haven't opened. Yet. The morning light looks different now. You've seen sunrises before, quiet, golden, but melting through mist like honey. But this one feels suspicious. It creeps through the window like it's checking to make sure you're still here, still intact, still playing the role you were handed. You sit up slowly, half expecting the bed to vanish out from under you, or the floor to sprout a hand. But no, just linen sheets, cold air, dust dancing in the light. Your boots are still by the door, the key still hangs on its peg, the bell though, that's gone. You pat your pockets 3 times just to be sure. Gone. But the ring, still there. Tight. Heavy. Warm. You stare at your hand for a long time, watching it, waiting for it to twitch, to curl, to crawl off your wrist and drag itself across the room. But no, it just sits there. Ordinary. Quiet. Except it isn't, and you both know it. You go downstairs. The innkeeper is chopping onions and singing to himself. A low mumble of a song with no rhythm or purpose. You nod to him. He grunts back. The world moves on like nothing cracked, but something has. You step outside into a town that remembers you less than you remember it. The streets are clean, the air fresh. Children run through puddles while their parents shout about chores. The bakery window fogs with sweet steam. The tavern door creaks open and closed as someone hauls in a keg. No fog, no stitched mouths, just the impossible weight of normal. You don't stay long. You pass back through the gates before the hour bell tolls and head toward the hills, your feet finding the old road like they remember where it leads, even if you don't. The trees greet you quietly, branches shifting like they're trying not to make noise. No birdsong. No distant humming. But you don't trust the silence, because silence is where it waits. You stop for water near a stream. Cold, fast-moving meal. You stare into it for a moment, half hoping to see your reflection. You don't. Instead, you see a hand. Pale, just beneath the surface. Then it's gone. You keep walking. Midday comes and goes. Clouds gather and scatter. You pass other travellers, merchants, a tinker, a woman leading a goat with judgment in its eyes. None of them notice the ring, or maybe they do, maybe they've learned not to stare too long. Eventually you reach another village, smaller than the last. Just a cluster of homes, a chapel, a smithy. People glance up as you pass, some nod, some turn away. One child points at you wide-eyed and says something to their mother. You don't hear what. But the mother yanks the child away with fear that feels too precise to be about strangers. You keep walking. That evening you find shelter in a barn. No one chases you out. The hay smells like something that's never known rot. You lay back and watch dust spiral through shafts of fading light. You close your eyes. You dream of a library. Not the mirrored one. A new one. Endless. Aisles stretching out forever. And in the centre, a figure at a desk. You walk toward them. It's you, older, writing in a book that never ends. They look up, smile, and say, "There's still time." You wake just before dawn, and you know where you're going, the next village, the one beyond the hills, the one where you were supposed to forget. You set out before the sun breaks fully over the ridge, the sky still bruised from dreams. You walk for hours. The terrain flattens, the road narrows. You start to see signs, actual ones, painted in flaking red on cracked boards. None of them say the village's name, just symbols. An eye, a tree, a hand. You pass a scarecrow that isn't made of straw, its face is burlap. Its hands are bone. The road ends. Of course it does. The village lies ahead, still too far to see clearly, but close enough that you feel it pressing against your chest like a second heartbeat. You reach the outskirts by twilight. Everything looks familiar. Not exactly the same, but close. The layout, the chapel, the crooked well, the bathhouse window boarded shut. But it isn't that village. This one is newer, cleaner. The shadows haven't settled yet, but they will. You walk into the square, people glance at you. One woman stares too long. A man mutters something to his friend and gestures subtly toward your hand. The one with the ring. They know. Maybe not what they know, but enough. You hear a door creak open, footsteps behind you, and a voice, familiar, sharp, tired. "Elspeth," you say, turning. But it's not her. It's a girl, young, holding a bell. Your bell. She looks up at you with wide, knowing eyes and says, "You drop this." She places it in your hand, warm, heavy, ready. And in that moment, you realise something awful. You didn't come here to stop it. You came to replace yourself. You came to hand off the memory, to pass the ring, to pass the bell, to give someone else the weight of knowing. You kneel in front of the girl, hold out the ring. She doesn't take it. She steps back and smiles. "You keep it," she says. "You're not done." Then she's gone. And the sky begins to crack. Just a hairline fracture. But it's enough. You hear the first laugh from the chapel tower, and your pocket gets heavier. You don't scream, you don't panic, you don't drop the bell and run, because what would be the point? You've done this, you've been this. The laugh from the chapel tower isn't new, it's not even loud anymore. It's just familiar, like the whine of a hinge you never bother to oil, or the sound of someone dragging a stool across stone in the room above yours. A background noise, part of the structure. You look up. There it is. The same old tower looming above the village square like a finger pointing at nowhere. The laugh rolls again. Not from a person. Not from anything with a throat. It's the bell itself. Warping, cracking, refusing to die quietly. It's too early. The village is still breathing. The rot is still buried. But not deep enough. The sky ripples with another fracture. A faint blue-white line zigzagging across the dusk like a scar that forgot to fade. You know what comes next. It's not a question anymore. It's a schedule. You've slipped back into your role like it was stitched for you, and maybe it was. Maybe you're wearing something else's skin. Maybe you always were. You turn toward the chapel. People are watching you now. Not openly. They're good at it. Casual glances over soup bowls, slow nods in doorways, shutters closing just a bit too quietly. They know, or they suspect. But it's not fear on their faces. Not really. It's resignation. As if they've read the pages already. As if they've seen this episode before. You walk slowly, the bell warm in your pocket, not glowing, not humming, just ready. The chapel door is open and the air inside smells like dust and wax and something damp. Something old enough to have a name but not a mouth. Candles line the walls, flames steady and unnaturally still. You walk the aisle. The altar is bare this time, no book, no monks, just silence. And then you hear it. From below. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of a hand with too many fingers knocking politely from beneath the floor. You kneel. You don't remember kneeling, but your knees are on stone now, and your fingers are tracing the cracks in the tiles like they're veins. You don't need a map. You are the map. Your bones know this place. Your blood remembers the rhythm. The bell shifts in your pocket, impatient now. You speak, not loudly, not clearly, just one word. Wait. And for a moment, everything holds. The tapping stops. The air stills. Even the sky goes quiet. The fractures overhead frozen mid-spread. You stand. You walk to the back of the chapel, past the sacristy, into the shadows where the old stone staircase spirals down. This time there's no torch waiting for you. No monk. You descend by memory. The walls are slick. The air is colder than it should be. And something is breathing with you. Just behind, just beyond, and not chasing, not guiding, just present. The door is still there at the bottom. The freestanding one, iron-bound, cracked slightly at the hinges. The keyhole glows faintly, but you don't need a key this time. You raise the bell. The door creaks open, and light pours out. Not white, not gold. That same blue, that same deep watery hue that makes your teeth hurt to look at. You shield your eyes. Inside is the same throne, the same mirror, sky. The same you, seated, watching, the crowned version. Older, wiser, wounded. They smile faintly. You came back. You nod. Didn't have a choice. They gesture at the throne beside them. It's empty, for now. You step inside the door, your foot crossing the threshold like it's done this 1,000 times. Because it has. Your voice is steadier now. What do I do? They tap the armrest. You remember. You sit. The throne accepts you with a sigh, like stone that's missed your weight. It pulses faintly beneath your hands. The sky above cracks further, and below, far below, you see it. Another version of the village, cleaner, brighter, not yet broken, but starting. A child digging in a field, a doll being sewn, a monk reading too deeply, a whisper in the well. You lean forward, and you watch. That's your job now, not to stop it. Not to save anyone, just to witness, because the rot doesn't need permission, it just needs memory. And now you are memory. You lift the bell. It rings once. The village resets. A new version of you stumbles across the threshold of knowing, tripping into crypts, knocking on wrong doors, thinking it's all a game or a quest or some awful dream they'll wake from. You smile sadly. You were them once, and now you are the thing waiting at the end of the road. The keeper of the ring, the watcher at the door, the last honest memory in a world full of forgetting. And high above, the chapel bell tolls again. Clear, ringing, laughing. And far below, a hand twitches in the dirt, ready to be found. You're still awake, aren't you? Don't worry, so is the village. It always is. Long after the story's end, long after the last bell tolls, long after the witness settles into the throne of memory and the mirrors stop shifting. You may have made it through the night, but somewhere out there, a door is waiting. It doesn't knock, it doesn't beg. It doesn't even creak anymore. It just stands, flippant and silent, until the next one arrives. And there's always a next one. Maybe you'll forget what you heard tonight. Maybe that's mercy, maybe it's design. Tomorrow you'll wake up to birdsong and a to-do list and a mug of something warm that tastes the way safety feels. But tonight you brushed up against something ancient and aching and stitched from all the parts of yourself you're not ready to name. You looked it in the eye, and you didn't run. And that matters. So if your dreams feel a little too real, if your hands twitch like they remember holding something heavy, if you wake to find a strange ring mark pressed into your palm, don't panic, just listen. And whatever you do, don't ring the bell. Let the next version of you earn it. For now, breathe deeply. You're safe. The village is far, far away. The moon is out. The stars are quiet. The hands are sleeping. Dim the lights a little more. Tuck your blanket under your chin and drift, because stories are like doors. And you made it back.